Happy Friday. Yes, it is Friday. We made it to Friday, Carlene.
You can finally say it. It's Friday.
I can finally say it.
You wait all week.
I even messed up the introduction to the show just because I got excited because it's Friday. Thank you for joining us this afternoon here on Live Impact News. I'm very excited, Nick Sturdivant here on WCNC Plus, and right across from me is fabulous, great producer Carlene Bragg. How are you doing?
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. You know, it's like you said, it's Friday.
It is
and
Friday.
You're the cheerleader of every day of the week.
I try to be.
And now when we get to Friday,
look,
it's the cherry on top.
Family here.
Family.
We're family here. We have to be honest. We have to do that. So we have a busy show. I know we are excited that it's Friday, but it is a lot going on. I'm looking at the feeds right now. There are a lot happening across the country.
And here.
Because we are dealing with the potential of severe weather. The setup is prime for some severe weather. We are weather alert today. But before we get to that, I want to give an update. And we just got this in. Let me press the refresh button. This is coming out of Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Here's what we have. We have hundreds of delays coming out of Charlotte Douglas. 341 delays in total. 76 cancellations so far at Charlotte Douglas.
We should note that's it's arriving and departing.
Yes.
That's both ways.
Both ways. Coming in and coming out. 76 cancellations. So we always tell you this because it's so important. Yeah. Make sure you check the app on your phone and make sure you call your airline. I don't know if folks still call the airline.
Do you call your airline?
I don't. But look, some
people are old school.
Some people do. Yeah.
Some people want to call the airline.
Some people call the airline.
Call the airline.
Just make sure you check your flight status.
Right.
Because again, we are dealing with 341 delays, 76 cancellations there at the airport. All right. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are weather alert, and so I don't want to waste any time. I want to bring in meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. He is joining us here in the Live Impact studio. How are you doing today, Brittany?
Nick, before a day of severe weather, it's always kind of a reminder as to why we do what we do to help keep people safe. People ask me all the time, hurricane, severe weather. Aren't you excited? Never excited about the chance that people are going to see damage, but it is the reason why we do what we do. So it's a day that you got a little pep in your step, I guess, a little bit when you come into work, just knowing how important the work is.
So time this out for us. When can we see? When can we see what? I guess if that's the question I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, so this is a classic severe weather setup in the Carolinas. So we talk all the time about how 90% of our damage from severe storms comes from wind. This is a main wind event. We're looking at the risk for some straight line wind gusts. And so actually, as producer Carlene, the amazing person that she is, pulls up the severe weather risk, the biggest change from yesterday is the fact that we are now under a high risk from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, this is not a significant change, again, from yesterday. Medium to high, the threat level is very, very similar, but we don't get high risk days very often. So it is something that, again, we kind of perk our ears up to. This is not just here in the Charlotte area, but also across other portions of the Carolinas. I'm going to back that up for a second because I put it in motion too early. But so you can see the upstate of South Carolina toward the coastline as well under that high risk. So my suggestion also, if you have friends or family in these areas, pretty much all the way toward Charleston, Myrtle Beach, up and toward portions of eastern North Carolina, down in Georgia, including Savannah near the coast. Again, make sure they're staying weather aware too. Now, the big change that we have seen, which this is very classic example of why weather balloon data and all that model data is so important, is that we are starting to see colder air and some slightly drier air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So that is an indication that we have a higher risk of seeing downburst winds. And so again, that's why that upper air data is so important. We talk about it all the time. Most of the upper air sites across the country do upper air soundings twice a day. Some of those have been cut lately. They still do try to do more on severe weather days. What essentially happens is the cold air in the core of the storm is what really drives, because it's so dense, some of that air to push toward the ground. And so that's why we typically see a higher risk of downburst winds on days where you have that little bit of colder and dry air at the mid-levels. That's when we get those downbursts we specifically talk about. Now, a 60-mile-per-hour plus wind or more, that's considered gusty, damaging winds. That's when a severe thunderstorm warning will be issued. But here in the Carolinas, we can have what's called considerable or destructive severe thunderstorm warnings, which are issued for 70 and 80 miles per hour. So right now we're looking at 60 to 70. I'm not seeing a lot of support for up to 80, but I mean, severe storms that cause downburst winds do way more damage than hail and tornado. So it's just a good reminder that wind is wind, no matter what it's coming from, it typically causes the worst damage. So the timeline is pretty much now till about 6 o'clock. Again, gusty winds, number one. Large hail is a possibility. That'll be number two. When we have that colder air, same thing. Hail is typically a higher risk. And there is a quick spin up potential. Tornado risk is there. It is not zero, but that is going to be on the lower end of that risk. I think if you live in the Charlotte metro, the biggest risk is going to be between 2 and 4 o'clock. You can see some of those little cells here pushing through by about 3. Notice there's a little bit of twist and spin with some of those. That's indicating that we could see some of those quick spin up QLCSs, but just really, really strong storms. It's a pretty much classic picture, perfect, however way you want to look at it, severe weather setup. Not that we want severe weather, but it's the perfect setup for it today across the area. Thankfully, we dry out nicely heading into the weekend, so that's something to look forward to. Now, if you've seen rain so far today, that is not the line coming through. There's been some light rain in areas of the mountains and foothills, but it hasn't produced any storms because we are just now starting to see the sun come out and kind of break apart some of those clouds. More sunshine you get, higher instability, which means a better chance for storms. So that's current Doppler radar as we're looking a little bit further north there across the Charlotte area. So really quick kind of summary here. Again, number one is going to be damaging winds, 60 mile per hour plus. Large hail, number 2. Tornadoes, quick spin up is going to be number 3. The time frame now till about 6 o'clock. But if you live in the Charlotte metro, I'm talking Union County, Mecklenburg County, Gaston County, Eastern Lincoln County, York County, Northern Lancaster, places like that, 2 to 4 p.m. If you're a little bit further south and east toward Chesterfield, Anson County, Richmond County, probably closer to about 5 or 6 until all is done. The good news here is that everything rolls through pretty quickly, so it is going to be a quick moving storm event. So we're not going to be sitting here talking about severe weather for 6+ hours. But we will be live. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich and I will be here on WCNC Plus, keeping you updated, and of course on linear TV as well as on our website, WCNC.com. So best thing you can do, stay weather aware, have multiple ways to get alerts, whether that's the WCNC Charlotte mobile app, your NOAA weather radio, anything that you can do to kind of prepare yourself and your family right now, because essentially the storms are already starting to push through portions of the Carolinas. So.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Brittany, it's important to have that app. Stay informed, stay tuned in to WCNC Plus. Watch us
Yeah.
on social media. You guys do a great job on social media, updating us as far as what's going on. So yeah, we will definitely check in with you and Brad. He's supposed to be in a little bit.
Yeah, he will be in a little bit. And we did talk about this yesterday, too.
Yeah.
I know when I was on WCNC Plus, your live Impact News stream. But remember also, too, is streaming. There is a delay.
Yes.
So there's more urgency when you get those warnings. Whether it's a severe thunderstorm warning, we tell you to treat it like a tornado warning because, again, winds can cause just as much damage. Get to your safe place as quickly as possible if you get those alerts. And because, again, there is about a 30-second or so delay, kind of depending on your internet, So when we tell you that, of course, I think we talked about this yesterday. We'll normally kind of try to give you an early heads up if we think something is going to be issued for that reason. It's just kind of how TV and meteorology has evolved.
Right.
If we see something, maybe National Weather Service hasn't called it yet, but just pay extra attention if you're getting your information via streaming, whether that's our app, WCNC Plus on your Roku, Amazon Fire, because it is a little bit more urgent because of that delay.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to say, my mother, Janet Bragg, wave to the camera. Hi, Mom. She's watching.
We love Janet.
So she wanted to say thank you for including the coast, the warning for the coast for the, our friends and family on the coast. Because she's like, sometimes, because she watches us, and she's like, she likes to hear the warnings for friends and family down at the coast.
Yeah.
That you're keeping them in mind. So thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome, Janet. We love you. We love Carlene. And I will say, I think that's a good reminder always, of course. The Carolina coastline toward Asheville, they're our friends and family too. They get it sometimes after we do. Sometimes they get it first, whatever the case is. And so we always want folks all across to stay weather aware.
And my mom is in the High Point, Greensboro area, so she watches.
Yes.
So thank you on behalf of her.
Yeah, and they'll see similar
Moms
time
love
frame.
you.
So
Yeah.
text her, make sure she knows.
Moms love you.
Yeah.
Well, I know Janet.
Brittany Van Voorhees, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. Do you want to?
Let's go to Ms. Karen Reed.
Okay, so happening right now, let me set it up for you. So we've been covering this trial. I know I say this every day, but we've been covering this trial extensively for weeks now. We're talking about the Karen Reed trial. Karen Reed is charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter while operating a vehicle under the influence and leaving the scene. She's accused of striking her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, with her SUV back in 2022. This is actually the second murder trial. And it's a big day in this trial as the defense called its first witness after the prosecution rested its case on Thursday. So the defense's first witness, let me show you a live look, was accident reconstruction expert Matt DeSogra.
I believe that's right.
Yes. Bear with me as far as names. I'm reading this in real time, so thank you, Carlene. So this is the trial. He is on the stand. Let's take a listen into what's taking place right now.
Methodology.
The default methodology, do you have any professional literature that says that is the best time to start the analysis?
Not literature. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, because that introduces the least amount of variables. Once you start trying to align events off of subsequent times, you just introduce more addition and subtraction or math you have to do. So it's easiest to do T0 and align everything from there.
If you're lining up the end of one event with the end of another event, it's more coordinated than if you take it from different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it. Right. Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger knot.
Absolutely. And that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention,
So you're
apertures.
not suggesting that Mr. Burgess was being misleading by choosing the end point when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No.
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying he was cherry picking, are you?
I don't remember the context in which I used the word cherry picking, but I don't think it was with respect to a trigger alignment.
So there's no legitimate professional basis of suggesting your way is better or worse than going from the front or the end of the event.
No.
So you're not offering criticism on that. So just so I understand.
Not criticism. I pointed out that it's not typical, and I pointed out not even to say specifically that it's not typical, because even that, to your point, might sound critical. I just want to be clear that I adopted their convention. It's not the way I would have done it, but I kept that convention consistent in my analysis, so I wasn't changing in the middle, trying to obfuscate what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. So if someone's looking end to end, you're not going to add 5 seconds. It's if someone went from middle to end.
Could you give me that?
Yeah, you were
A little
suggesting
different.
those questions about, well, since you're looking at the end instead of the middle, then you got to add another 5 seconds on. That's not really an accurate analysis if you're looking at a comparison from end to end. You wouldn't then add the 5 seconds to the time of the trigger because you're starting at the end from both devices.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to allow it if you can answer it in that form.
It's going to depend on if you're doing an alignment with something that is a range of values, then you have to be consistent on where you're doing it. If you're doing discrete points, then that's just a single point in time. There's no beginning or end. It's just a single second. So the best answer I can kind of give is it depends on what you're doing.
Well, in this case, you're basing it off the end of the event, the end, not the trigger, the end, comparing it comparatively to the end of a different device. So you wouldn't just add 5 seconds just for the heck of it, would you?
You would not add 5 seconds for the heck of it.
you see 12:32:09 minus 12:31:43, the middle line, equals 26 seconds. Isn't that in Dr. Welcher's slides before, let me phrase it more cleanly, before Shannon Burgess analyzed the data more closely on May 8th, in his May 8th report? Isn't this the exact difference in time that Dr. Welcher cites in his PowerPoint, 26 seconds?
I'll sustain it in there.
Did you see, when you reviewed reports, that Dr. Welcher uses this exact number, plus 26 seconds in his report?
I got the number from the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry,
not the
PowerPoint.
report, but that is all of the numbers here on this slide are from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint. And on the previous slide, I show that. So these are all just
And-
copied straight from that.
And you've labeled this John's interaction window.
I did.
Okay. Interaction window. Do you think it might be confusing when you use interaction window to make it seem like the event was limited to 10 seconds?
No, and that's not the implication there at all.
That's not what you're trying to say.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If I can clarify what I mean by interaction window is that there's
Please do.
a range of times that we end up with when we start running these adjustments. So we never land on a singular point of alignment. We end up, like I showed at the end, with 30 points. That's the window that I'm talking about. That's the window that I mean.
So if we could put up page 33 from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint, just to illustrate the point you're trying to help us with. Widen that a little forward. So this represents, you've seen this, right?
It looks familiar, like it's from one of his slides. And if I've seen it, I did not spend a lot of time digging into it.
Does this look like the 10 seconds of data that would be captured from a triggering event in a text stream data? Objection.
I want to see you at sidebar.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Right there, you're watching live in the Boston, Massachusetts area as the Karen Reed trial continues. Week 6 of that. It looks like they're taking a bit of a break. All right, so let's shift gears. Let's come back here. So there has been a lot of concern. We've done a lot of stories regarding the challenges with the North Carolina DMV.
You've had challenges yourself.
I've had challenges myself. Specifically, there have been a lot of challenges, but in my case, in recent cases,
Yes.
is trying to get an appointment for a real ID.
I'm trying to get an appointment myself, and they're booked up. I can't get an appointment.
It
at
took me
all.
3 months. I
Yeah.
booked an appointment right before Christmas. I was able to get it mid-March.
Okay.
So it took me some time. And a lot of folks are having problems. Carlene, you're having problems. My parents still have not been able to get an appointment, and this is not to get on the DMV.
No,
but
it's
this
just
is
the reality of the situation.
It's the reality of the situation. So today, Governor Josh Stein held a press conference with Secretary of Transportation Joey Hopkins and newly appointed DMV Commissioner Paul Tyne. Again, they held a press conference to highlight the state's response to ongoing DMV challenges and the urgent need for improvements. So again, we were there this morning. Our content partner, rather, was there this morning at that press conference. Let's take a listen into that press conference in case you missed it.
Good morning. Welcome to Raleigh East Driver License Office. I'm Paul Tyne, the new Commissioner of DMV. Thank you for joining us today and to talk about the challenges we have here at DMV and some early steps we're taking to address those challenges. A key part of my approach is listening and responding to feedback from customers and employees. Before I get deeper into how our team is going to address these challenges, I want to bring up a customer with a sort of story that we are working to address. I'd like to introduce Jocelyn Wright, a mom from Durham who is going to talk about her experience joining her child to get a license.
My name is Jocelyn Wright, and I'm a mother of a teen driver. My daughter became eligible for her teen driver level 2 license in February of last year. In preparation, I went to the DMV website and tried to get an appointment so she could take her driving test. I stalked the website every single day. I was able to finally get her an appointment probably 4 months after her 16th birthday. However, I had to drive an hour and a half in order to get an appointment. We drove there. She passed her driving test. She got her license. We prepared for her Teen Driver 3 license, which meant that she had to wait 6 months, do an additional 6 hours of driving, complete the form. We did that. And then it was my responsibility to then find her another appointment so she could go back to the DMV to turn in her form, take her new picture, and get her Teen Driver 3 license. However, there were no appointments available. She became eligible for her license December of last year. Because of that, I had to then go to social media, to parenting groups, to find out if they had some luck in walk-in appointments at any of the DMV locations. I was able to listen to some other parents and their concerns. They were all frustrated and going through the same things that I was. She became eligible in December. However, we were not able to get to another DMV location.
All right, so we're going to put a pin in that for a second. We're going to pause that press conference. I promise we're going to get back to it, but we want to come back with some breaking news. Again, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right now, we are tracking a vehicle crash on I-85 South at mile marker 37. 2 of the 4 lanes are closed. So this is a camera.
It's supposed to be showing near it. It's as close as we can get.
Okay.
And, I mean, before we took it, moments ago, it was like backed up, and now
it looks like traffic's flowing. But
so we'll try to see if things are open back up.
So yeah, this is not exactly where the vehicle crash is happening, as Carly mentioned.
Yeah.
But this is sort of where we saw backups. But again, a vehicle crash there on I-85 South at mile marker 37. Multiple lanes closed, 2 lanes of the 4 lanes closed. To give you an idea where this mile marker is, this is near Beatty's Ford Road. So this is a look. It looks like things are clear here. I don't want to say the lanes are open or the crash is clear, but
we can see traffic's flowing.
We can see traffic's flowing. So just if you're in this area, about to leave in this area, just have a little bit of patience. If you see some backup there, some cars backed up, and you see crews out there trying to clean up the roadway. But again, that is what we're tracking right now, a vehicle crash on I-85 South near Beatty's Ford Road. All right, so let's get back to that press conference. Again, DMV in North Carolina has seen a lot of challenges. Governor Stein, along with other state leaders, had a press conference this morning to discuss how they are working around and working through these challenges. Take a listen
in. Mother's Day weekend, that Friday of this year. So again, I drove an hour to wait in line because there weren't any appointments available at the Henderson location, DMV. Once we got there, we knew that the walk-ins were available to come in and be serviced at noon until closing. When we got there, there was a sign on the door that there was a lunch break from 11 to 1. So we stood in line, we waited, and then it started to rain. We stood outside in the rain and waited until we were serviced. We were the last people serviced that day, and we walked out at 4:58 with the worker that was there at the location. I almost did not make it into the building. I pleaded, I begged, and I let the DMV worker know that I drove an hour just to make sure that my daughter could get her license, and if she would please let us wait inside of the building instead of standing outside in the rain. We stood so long that my feet were swollen, and she accommodated me and allowed us to come in, and we were the last people that she serviced that day. That was my experience with the DMV, and I am positive that this situation will improve, and by telling my story and those of others, it will help us to get to a resolution of better service with the DMV. Now we'll have Secretary Hopkins.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And that story is something that's the reason we're here. You know, that's just one of many that we hear every day, and that's what we're trying to fix. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Joey Hopkins, Secretary of North Carolina DOT. I'm here this morning to address the challenges facing our DMV and express my gratitude to those supporting our efforts to improve service for all North Carolinians, people like Jocelyn. The DMV is a critical part of everyone's life, whether it's getting a driver license, renewing your plates, or getting a real ID. But as you've already heard, we have significant challenges at DMV. We have long wait times, difficulties booking appointments online, and an overwhelmed workforce that have frustrated many of you. These issues stem from a combination of factors. We've had a surge in population growth, over 2.5 million in the last 20 years. We have strained staffing levels, and we have the need for modernized systems. We hear your concerns, and we're committed to addressing them head on. You've met Paul Tyne, he's our new DMV commissioner, and I'm thrilled to have him lead this transformation. Paul brings a wealth of experience as a business owner, a former legislator, and a community leader. During his time at the General Assembly, he co-chaired the Transportation Appropriations Committee and served on the Joint Transportation Oversight Committee, giving him insight into complexities of our DOT systems. Paul knows how to get things done at the speed of business, and he's already hit the ground running to reduce wait times, enhance our website's usability, and empower our frontline staff to deliver exceptional service. I'm confident under his leadership that DMV will become more efficient and customer focused. I want to also extend my thanks to Governor Stein for his unwavering support. His vision for a more responsive DMV is clear, and his proposed budget, which includes funding for 61 driver's license examiners and 24 additional staff for new and expanded driver's license offices, will help us meet the demands of our growing state. I also want to thank our state auditor and his staff for their oversight, which will help us identify areas for improvement and also ensure that we're accountable to the public. Their work strengthens our ability to serve efficiently. Finally, I'm grateful to the legislature for their partnership. Their support from funding to policy collaboration has been instrumental in helping us address staffing shortages and modernize our IT infrastructure. The road ahead, though, is not without challenges, but with Paul's leadership, the governor's support, the collaboration of our auditor and legislator, we're paving the way for a DMV that North Carolinians can rely on. Now I'd like to ask the Commissioner Tyne to come back up here for some remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Secretary. Jocelyn, thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate it very much. Unfortunately, it is way too often that I hear those stories of us not performing the way that we need to. And we have no shortage of opportunities for improvement, as I like to say, in the organization. And so I'd like to pivot, though, and talk about our approach at DMV moving forward. Our new approach is to create a positive, customer-focused culture. And to start that off, we're setting lofty goals. I want us to become a premier customer service organization, not just a great DMV, but a premier customer service organization. In order to do that, we need to empower our frontline staff. To get there, I needed to understand what was going on. So I've been going to several different offices across the state, from the Outer Banks all the way out to the mountains and here in Raleigh. And I've triaged the lines. That's where you check their paperwork and find out if they have what they need, so they don't wait in line to then find out that they don't have what they need. I've been on road tests. A fine young man was very brave and let me ride along with him. And at 16, he did great, even driving a big old truck. So I was very proud of him there. I've listened to customers in the front line, and it's informed the changes that I'm announcing today. I'm supported in this effort by what I call Team DMV, and it starts with our staff. We've got a great staff who want to do a great job, but they haven't been empowered to get there, whether it's the systems or the processes or the facilities themselves. And so it's my job and our support staff's job to make sure that they have those resources moving forward. It also starts with the governor, who has made it very clear that this is a priority for the state to fix this problem, and I appreciate that support. The secretary has given me every bit of resource inside of DOT that I could possibly ask for, from HR to budgeting, and they have been extremely helpful and empowering to help me do my job. The legislature, as we said, they've put in on the House side some budget items that would definitely be helpful, and the Senate has signaled to us that they'd like to support us as well. And then the auditor, as you mentioned before, you know, having bad data in the beginning of showing up to a job makes it very difficult to make good decisions, and the auditor's work has really helped us to understand where we are as far as wait times and different items inside that we can improve on. So let me talk about some of the early actions that we've taken. First, the customer focus. It starts with owning the experience from when our customers show up. It's not when they get to the front of the line. It's not when they get in front of one of our folks, one of our examiners. It's owning that customer experience from when they get out of the car and they get in line. And so that's why triage, making sure we check people's paperwork, has been a major push, a major initiative for us. We've asked for volunteers from inside of the organization to come back out in the field and help us with that. We've also gotten some interns that we're utilizing during the summer, which is our biggest time period, our biggest crunch. We have 3 pilots that we're focusing on right now. This office is one of them, and it's all about throughput. How can we get people in and out of our offices as quickly as possible? We've learned some great lessons already, and we've seen some indicating some ways to reduce our wait time, and we're going to be implementing those in the next couple of weeks. I've got 3 levers in which I can keep people moving through the office. One is our examiners and what we do in the office. One is our phone system when people call and make questions and have questions, and the other is our website. The more we can do in our website, the better. And so we've done some real enhancements already there. There's a new Real ID tool with that. If you're wondering if you need Real ID, go to our website. It's right there on the front of the page. It'll take you through a step-by-step process and then answer that question if you really need one. If you don't need one right now, please wait until we can clear out this backlog, and that'll help you determine. If you do need one, there's another set of questions, and it'll take you through it, and it'll tell you the right documents so you show up ready to go. We've also changed the website because people don't go to our website for information. They go to our website to perform jobs. They want to take care of a task. So what we've done there is we've reorganized it so it's very clear if you're trying to renew a license or get your Real ID, what path you go on, and that came out last week. And then we're communicating at the customer's level. If we're going to make changes and improvements, we need to communicate those so you know how to interact with DMV the best way that you can. So we now have social media. We didn't have that in the past. You can join us on Facebook and see what we've got going on. And then we've also gotten ncdmv.gov. That went live yesterday. That just makes us easier to locate and find. And then accessibility. We have 20 offices that will have Saturday hours starting tomorrow. That's 4 more than we've had in the past. And then we've also, to create more accessibility, we've been temporarily moving some central staff out and that were already trained as examiners but have moved up. We've gotten some volunteers that we can put back in the field to help with the lines this summer. Early actions in regards to our front line. We've reorganized to empower our entire organization. We have a COO position that is open right now. They are there to make sure our operations run cleanly day to day. And then we have a deputy commissioner of modernization. Their job is the big change, the new systems, the new processes that we need as we move forward. And the governor has been very gracious in allowing us a gentleman who is serving in that capacity on an interim basis. We have new core principles to promote problem solving. Service, efficiency, agility, and accountability. Service because we serve the people of North Carolina and the businesses of North Carolina first and foremost. Efficiency because we need to do everything quickly and correctly the first time. Agility, we need to be able to problem solve and meet the customer where they are. And then accountability is not to point fingers at our people, it's to empower them and say you're accountable for your job, so go make it work the way that it needs to work. A great place to work equals a great place to visit. So that's another focus spot, and we need to keep great people like Tanika here there. So we have changed, we've created a career path for our examiners. We've also increased their pay so that we can recruit and keep the folks that we've got there. We've ordered new equipment. We've also ordered new uniforms. It's the first time in 5 years. We need people to have pride in their work and feel good about what they do in order to give a great experience to our consumers. But we definitely have a long way to go. These are just the first projects that we're announcing. They're not going to help the people that are standing in line today. They're not going to help the people that are looking for appointments today. But know that we are working to fix those problems as we move forward. We have great people in DMV. My job is to empower them. But I'm asking for your patience during the summer while we make our changes. This is our highest time. Know that we're working. Know that these folks have not been empowered the way that they need to, and that's my job to do that. So I have not gotten them there yet, so I apologize for that, and to all the folks that are standing in line and frustrated with the way that they receive our services. So the last thing is we're going to make a lot of changes, which means I won't get them all right. If we're going to move this fast, we're going to have to make some failures along the way. I would like your feedback. And so there's different ways to do it. You can go to our website, click Help, and then you can enter comments there, and we're looking at those. You can tag NCDMV on social media, and we'll pick it up there. Or you can call 919-715-7000 and let us know how things are working or not working for you. Now, y'all are in for a treat, because Ms. Tanika Williams, our senior examiner here, has built a culture, even with all these frustrating things. I walked in the office today and just said, hey, this is what's going on. I got my boss and my boss's boss here, and we're here to talk about our issues and how we're going to move forward. And the woman stopped me. She goes, I just got to tell you, the people here, even with the line and everything else, are great, and that's largely the responsibility of Ms. Tanika Williams.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Raleigh East office. I am Tanika Williams, the senior here. I have been with the DMV for 10 years, and I have been the senior examiner here at this office for 4 years. I opened this office from the ground up. As you saw as you came in today, I have a very busy office. It's obvious we need a little more people to meet the demand here. We only have 7 full employee positions for our 15-station office. On average, the customers are waiting a little more than 3.5 hours. We've been piloting a walk-in only service here with no appointments since May 5th. The line starts moving first thing in the morning at 7 as opposed to when it was before at 12 noon. Everyone shows up, first come, first in, first out without their appointments. Things are getting better, but we still have a long way to go. Wait times are starting to move down, and the morale is up. I feel the morale is starting from the head with the supervisor. I feel like my team likes it, and most importantly, the customers are able to see it. Before I get back to work, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for hearing us and also seeing us. It was nice to meet everyone today, the secretary, the governor, as well as meeting our commissioner, and thank you for all the progress that has gone on thus far to help us to get to where we are headed. Commissioner's time. It was great to see you again today, and thank you for listening and for the support you have given us. It means more than you know. And now I have the honor of introducing our governor. I'm feeling pretty good today, y'all, because I feel special that I get introduced the governor. It's not uncommon for a commissioner to stop by an office and see all the examiners and greet and meet everyone. Also to have the secretary here as well, or the governor come into your office. It's a first. I've got all 3 in one day on a great Friday, so I'm grateful. Josh Stein is honored to serve as North Carolina's 76th governor. Governor Stein is committed to creating economic opportunity for every North Carolinian, investing in public schools, developing our workforce, and keeping people safe. Governor is dedicated to providing effective and impactful services for the people of North Carolina, including making state services accessible and recruiting great public servants. Josh and his wife Anna are members of Temple Beth Orr in Raleigh. They are the proud parents of Sam, Adam, and Leah, who all attended North Carolina public schools just as they did. So without further ado, I would greatly be honored to introduce our governor. You're welcome.
That was great. Good morning, everybody. It is my pleasure to be with you all. I want to thank Secretary Hopkins, Commissioner Tyne, Senior Examiner Williams for joining us today. It's been really inspiring to be with you, to see the interaction, the quality of interaction you have with the customers when they're waiting in line, and you take care of business, and I can see you're going to do excellent. Jocelyn, thank you for coming forward with your story. We wish it were a unique story, but really you are here speaking on behalf of thousands and thousands of North Carolinians and the immense frustrations that people legitimately have in dealing with the DMV. We pretty much all need the DMV in North Carolina, and what we want is for this organization to work for the people of North Carolina. We have heard today, and you all may know from your own experiences, that there's serious problems at the DMV. People shouldn't have to line up for hours at the DMV or take days off work or use their vacation time in order to get their driver's license or whatever other business they need. Our DMV employees need better working conditions and more support so they can more effectively provide high-quality service to all North Carolinians. At this location alone, as Senior Examiner Williams said, more than half of the spots of the workspaces are empty because we do not have enough examiners. Cuts in half the number of people who could be served from this place because we just simply do not have enough employees. As a state, we cannot have more stories like Jocelyn's. We have to get DMV working better for our people. We can do it now, and we must do it right. That's what I said to Commissioner Tyne when we hired him last month, and I shook him, and I'm like, are you going to take this job? Do you want this job? And he was unrelenting. He said, this is something that we can do better, and I am prepared to do my part to help us address it. So I thank him for hitting the ground running. As he said, he's been visiting DMV offices and talking with customers and
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serter. Right there, you're watching a press conference from earlier before we got on the stream. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein, along with other state leaders and the new leader of the DMV in North Carolina, talking about the ongoing challenges there with the DMV across the state and how they're working through a lot of those challenges. All right, so we are weather alert today, and I want to bring in Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. And Brad, you have your eye on the radar. I do want to point out, we reported earlier that we had hundreds of delays at Charlotte Douglas Airport. We now have it confirmed from American Airlines that a lot of these delays and cancellations are weather related, Brad.
Yeah, which is interesting because the storms aren't even here yet, so probably trying to get planes out of the way or maybe another airport being impacted by the weather. But I did want to give you an update, Nick, because we do have a new severe thunderstorm watch for most of our viewing area. It's the area shaded in yellow. This is a severe thunderstorm watch, which is in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. But the reason we put through this evening, because we're likely going to see it expanded east and then some of the counties removed, especially as the storms evolve through the evening hours. So I think that's something we're going to watch as we go through the evening. Now, want to show you quickly the severe weather outlook for today, because earlier today we saw an upgrade from a medium risk to a higher risk. Now, the area shaded in red is primarily our concern. So the mountains and foothills, you might be completely out of the woods for the most part because the storms are already kind of past you. But these areas around Charlotte and south and east to Raleigh down to Columbia, that's an area we're going to watch very carefully for the potential for damaging straight line winds. What's interesting about this setup is depending on the mode of storms, and what I mean by that is, are we going to get a line of storms? Are we going to get individual storms? Depending on how the configuration of the storms evolve, that could mean the difference between a hail tornado risk and more of a straight line risk. But this primarily is for straight line winds. There's a 30% probability in this area in red for damaging winds, which means 58 miles per hour high. The tornado risk is only 2% and the hail risk is only 15%. So you see how the pecking order for this kind of goes. And remember what a watch means. Now that we're currently under a watch, we always like to use our cupcake graphic here to kind of show you the difference. We have the ingredients in place for severe weather. So we're in the severe thunderstorm watch. This is the equivalent of a cupcake watch. Once we get cupcakes, that's a warning. And once we get severe storms, either indicated on Doppler radar or spotted by a trained spotter or actual reports, then a warning is issued. So let's go right to the radar and we'll show you what's happening right now across our area. We do have some storms beginning to develop just to the west, and I'll zoom in on a couple of these areas first. We'll show you these storms that are developing basically in parts of Cleveland County. Not a lot of cloud to ground lightning with these, but the ones that are a bit further south, and these are the ones that are heading down into the upstate of South Carolina. The way these are taking shape, this is an indication of probably some straight line winds. And what we're looking for is, are we going to see bowing segments? And what we mean by a bowing segment in this line is, do we have basically something that's taking on the configuration of a bow and arrow? So think of how a bow and arrow looks. It looks something like this. My crude drawing there. You got that shape of the radar return, and the arrow would be like the wind's pushing it out. That's why it's being pushed out. So that's a really strong signature of straight line wind damage. Now, if these become individual storms and they kind of take on the shape of a kidney bean or have that little hook, then that's more of what we call supercells. And supercells in particular can produce large hail, and obviously those are the storms we watch for tornadic cells. So let's look at some of the velocity data with these to see what the winds are looking like right now, and we'll look at the GSP radar because it's a little bit closer. So one thing you're noticing right now, these brighter shades of green west of, let's say, Spartanburg, this is an indication of some pretty strong winds. So these are going to be stronger, and they're pushing to the east pretty quickly right now. Let me look at the wind speeds on these. Looks like they're moving about 25 miles per hour. So that's an area we're going to have to watch. So our South Carolina counties in particular, and I'm going to show you satellite and radar together because there is some sun out, and the sun's a key part. We've got some clouds here, but right in this area, so think of Charlotte south, this area in particular, this would be the spot that we're going to watch for sunshine to poke out, and that's going to feed the fuel for these storms. So as they move to the east, they would be able to tap into that warm, humid air, which is surging up from the south, and that would allow for those storms to maintain their strength and, if anything, maybe get a little bit stronger with time. So let's put a quick storm track on there. I want to get an idea on the actual speed here real quickly because I'm kind of curious how fast these storms are moving. So let's put a storm track on this. We're going to take our storm tracker here as I go over to the radar. We'll grab it. Right now it looks, just estimating, about 30 miles per hour is the movement. So we'll do a track on these just to give you a rough estimate for folks in the metro, kind of give you a rough idea on when they're going to arrive. So I'll move this over, we'll move it right here so it's a little bit easier to see. I'll put the current time at the top. So Cherville around 121, Kings Mountain 126, Bessemer City 130-ish, Gastonia, Clover close to 2 o'clock, and that's kind of the time frame for the Charlotte metro, 2 to 3 o'clock. So everybody in and around the Charlotte area, Metrolina, look for 2 to 3 o'clock. That does look to be the time frame for those storms pushing in from the west. And again, our primary concern is going to be damaging straight line winds. So let me show you our outlook, and this is kind of going to show you the impacts based on the level of threat we have today. Winds by far our #1 threat, followed second by hail. Tornado risk, again, not huge. Actually, this is not a significant tornado setup because of that, but doesn't mean we can't see 1 or 2, especially in those supercells. And flooding, while it's low, if we do see additional rainfall, especially northern parts of Stanley County, that's an area in particular that we would be more concerned about potentially for some flooding, because they saw some very heavy rain this morning, and that heavy rain could cause additional flooding. So the areas we're going to be most concerned about with flooding would be areas in Stanley County. Winds are going to be #1 concern. So we can't totally rule out the risk for flooding, but it's going to be specific areas that were hit hard yesterday with some very heavy rainfall as they move through the area. So let's look at our futurecast. We're going to use our short range futurecast here to kind of show you how things evolve through the afternoon hours. You see the line of storms right there. We're about roughly 118 right now as I look at my watch. You see the storms pushing east pretty quickly. So the timeline of around 2 o'clock for the Charlotte area actually kind of pans out pretty well. Not everyone's going to see severe weather. That's the other part of this. These are going to be scattered. You see there's some pockets where some areas will not see severe weather. The mountains and foothills, as I mentioned, probably already out of the woods. That's why you're not under the severe thunderstorm watch. But there could be additional watches for areas of central and eastern North Carolina as the storm pushes east. Now, it won't rain out the entire weekend because, or the week, I should say, the evening or the weekend, because once these storms move through, you could see it dries out pretty quickly. By 6 o'clock, we're pretty much in the clear, and then drier, cooler air filters in. So these are going to be quick hitters overall that are moving through the area. So we're going to be streaming all day to kind of give you an update on these storms through the evening here on WCNC Plus. We'll be bouncing back and forth between our on-air signal as well, and if there are warnings issued, we likely will do some cut-ins there as well. Today's one of those days. It's a good time to have 3 ways to get warnings. We always like to tell you have multiple ways, but at least 3. That could include social media, WCNC app, wireless emergency alerts, social media, friends and family, streaming service, TV, all those count. So have at least 3 of those, because in case one fails, you've got multiple ways to get warnings. The good news right now is we do not currently have any warnings in effect for our area. The biggest story right now is the watch, which is up until 8 p.m. tonight, includes all these counties shaded in yellow. And trust me, we will see additional watches issued east of here, and we likely will see these counties kind of whittled away sooner than later. So there are some signs that we are going to see some better weather moving in from the west. Real quickly, want to pull up some of our cameras here. We're going to pull up our Dallas camera because we can look to the west pretty quickly just to see what the cloud cover looks like. So this is in Gaston County, north on 321 as you go into the northern part of the county. You can see some of the lowering taking place. So we're actually looking back towards those storms to the west, and the lowering cloud deck tells you some pretty strong storms developing there. Actually looks like we might have some rain falling right there as well. So we're starting to see some of the first storms move into parts of western Gaston County. So we're going to be keeping an eye on this coming up in a few minutes here. We'll be back on, but we're going to jump over to WCNC on air and do a quick cut-in for everybody on the linear side. But we'll be back on WCNC Plus coming up in a couple of minutes, Nick.
All right, thank you for checking in, Brad. We'll get back to Brad in a minute. I want to give you a total tally of the current power outages in our area. So Mecklenburg County has 28 outages, Gaston County 109, Iredell 25, Rowan County 10, Cabarrus County 3, Union County 4, York County 110 outages. So that is sort of a breakdown of the current situation. Right now, we are still tracking flight delays and cancellations there. Charlotte Douglas, right now, I'm looking at it according to FlightAware, and this is a website that tracks delays and cancellations. 339 delays there at Charlotte Douglas, 91 cancellations. So the number of cancellations are up. We were able to confirm with American Airlines that a bulk of their flights, a lot of their flights, weather-related cancellations and delays. So that is what they're facing right now at the airport. I keep refreshing the page just in case, because the number keeps fluctuating a little bit, not by much, but the cancellations did jump up. Earlier it was at 76.
Yeah, they jumped up.
Now is at 91. So again, we're trying to give you as much information as possible to make sure you are weather aware. Let's send it back now to weather.
Just Brad Panovich here at WCNC. We're watching the potential for severe storms this afternoon. Today, we want you to stay weather aware and stay alert for potential impacts from severe storms. Just out within the last 30 minutes, we've got a severe thunderstorm watch issued for most of our area, including the Charlotte metro area. All the counties shaded in yellow. A couple things to note here. Mountains are almost out of the woods now because the storms are moving in from the west. So we will see some of these counties removed as the storms move in, and we'll likely see new watches issued east or expanded. So if you're in the Sandhills, that's an area we're going to watch as we go through the evening hours. So let's look at the outlook today. The severe weather outlook was updated this morning, and you notice the big area in red. This is the area of greatest concern. So the threat is much lower to the west. It's much higher to our south and east. So along 85 and south and east, the area shaded in red is an elevated or higher risk for damaging straight line winds. That is honestly the biggest concern with the storms that developed today. Doesn't mean we couldn't see some large hail or an isolated tornado, but you're looking at a 3-to-1 difference between the wind risk and hail and tornado risk. So the wind risk is definitely the one that is kind of jumping off as the setup is today with this strong disturbance coming in. And just to show you what we're talking about, the wind risk probably could raise this up a little bit, probably more towards the higher end of the medium there. But hail would be second, tornado, and then flooding. Can't rule this out because northern Stanley County got absolutely clobbered last night. New London area, north side of Albemarle, got about 3 to 5 inches of rain with a very slow-moving thunderstorm last night. So there was numerous flooding and water rescues in that area. If we see another storm move over that area, we could see flash flooding happen pretty quickly in that area. So let's show you the radar. We'll show you where the storms are developing right right now, because ahead of this, we do have some breaks in the clouds and some sunshine. These storms really aren't all that bad right now, but the one we are watching is in the upstate. You can kind of see these storms developing from Spartanburg and Greenville back towards areas towards the Savannah River as you go into Georgia. These are all pushing east pretty quickly, and they've got that orientation of some pretty strong indications of straight line winds already. No warnings yet have been issued with these storms, but we are seeing indications, at least on radar, of some pretty strong winds, especially in these cells. You see the brighter shades of green as well as some blue. That's basically winds blowing towards the east. The radar is right there, so these are going in this direction. The reds are obviously away, so the winds are all pushing in from the west fairly quickly. So let me show you a quick storm track on these to kind of give you a rough idea on when they're going to arrive. They're moving roughly at 30 miles per hour, but again, these could pick up some speed. So if you're planning for afternoon pickup or activities, we'll leave the time there. Right now it's 1:25 as I'm doing this cut in, but you can see Kings Mountain. Pretty soon it's going to be raining, but in the Charlotte metro area, including Gastonia, parts of northern York County, Western Union County, Eastern Gaston County, Southern Iredell, Cabarrus County, kind of the metro area, it's roughly 2 to 3 o'clock. That's kind of the time frame we're looking at for the worst weather to move into the Charlotte metro area. So if you can avoid even being outside during that time frame, or just want to postpone your trip until after that, that would be a good idea, because once that storm moves in, we're likely going to see some warnings, definitely some blinding rain, and potentially even some small hail. But right now, currently no warnings up for this line, but it is pushing into an area where the sunshine has been poking through. We've got a lot of heat and humidity trying to build up ahead of it. The more of that we see, the higher the risk that these storms could be severe, because this is a very potent low pressure system coming in. In fact, when we look at the water vapor loop, I'm going to widen this out, you can see this little disturbance. Look at this thing diving down. This is a very strong trough and vorticity maximum, we call it, swinging in. So there's a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere that could make up even for the lack of what we normally would look for thunderstorm fuel. So a lot of wind energy, just a little bit of thunderstorm fuel could drive the potential for some damaging winds and large hail. That's why we have the risk for severe storms today. So again, right now, severe thunderstorm watch up for the entire area, technically through 8 o'clock, but it's going to change as we go through the evening, because as the storms move through, the weather will improve pretty dramatically on the backside. So we'll likely see these counties removed, and we'll see new counties added out ahead of it. So today we want you to stay weather aware for potentially severe storms, and make sure you've got the WCNC app. Make sure you have 3 ways to get warnings and a way to seek shelter when the storms move in. We'll have more updates throughout the afternoon, but you can join us now on WCNC Plus for continuing coverage.
All right, Brad, thank you for that update. Again, we are weather alert today. So, again, it is important to stick here on WCNC Plus to get the latest information. Also, get our app as well. We want to take a look at the conditions outside. So, severe thunderstorm watch right now in Gaston County. This is a look at the ballpark in Gastonia, where the Ghost Peppers play, the home of the Gastonia Ghost Peppers. You see it there, Caramount Health Ballpark.
Look
there.
how low those clouds are.
Yeah, very, very ominous clouds there. They don't have a game today. I don't believe so.
You do this to me. Now
I know I do this. I'm
Google.
sorry to put you on the spot. I always put you on the spot.
I do not know.
I always
I'll
put
take
you
a
on the
look.
spot. Okay, but this is the look at the ball field. So we've got some delay. I'm sorry, not delays. We do have some delays at the airport. I mean power outages by county. Mecklenburg County, 28. Gaston County, 109, where that severe thunderstorm watch is now in place, in effect. Iredell County, 25. Rowan County, 10. Cabarrus County, 3. York County, 4. Union County, 4. York County, 110.
Guys, they're not here.
They're not
playing
here.
away.
I knew it.
They're in Maryland.
We always, every time it looks game day-ish every time we go there. So it didn't look like it was a game day happening there. All right, so let's get to our next live camera. This is I'm sorry.
This is the App State campus in Hickory. This is their Hickory campus.
So you see that rain.
I'll tell you, earlier today, Nick, we took this around 9 o'clock when Chris was in here for Live Impact News. Beautiful. Gorgeous day. Blue sky, everything. And now it's like, Gotham's taken over.
Yeah, it's slick out there on the road. So if you're in this area,
Yep.
you're listening to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, take your time.
Yep.
Take your time. Be safe out there on this Friday. We want you to kick off your weekend on the good foot, and that means being safe out there on the roads.
Right.
So that is West. Let's come back here home. Uptown. This is a look at Uptown. Haven't seen anything yet.
Doesn't look that bad.
Doesn't look bad there in Uptown right now. Uptown Charlotte looks nice so far. Again, we are anticipating that rain and potential thunderstorms to roll back into our area. So yeah, right now, if you're walking the dog, if you're in and around Uptown, you're high and dry.
Right.
For now. Switch over to Carowinds. Clouds look a little bit more ominous here.
Look at the fury. They're going.
It is, and it's going, and it is open there. That is a live look at Carowinds. Look, be safe. If you're out there at Carowinds right now, enjoy, but also make sure you have WCNC Plus dialed up. Make sure you have the app in hand, because that's where you get the updates. And as Brittany, listen to us. And look, as Brittany mentioned, when you get the updates via the stream, it's on the delay.
Yes.
So just be mindful of that. That's just how technology works. So it's always good to have the app, get real-time alerts from us, from our weather impact team, who's currently standing by right now. We'll get to them in just a few moments, but I want to give you right now the current power outages by county. I know I've said this a couple of times. This is what we have in the last 15 minutes. Right now, as far as power outages, Mecklenburg County 28, Gaston County 109, Iredell County 25, Rowan County at 10. They're good to go?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So let's send it over to our weather impact team, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, also Brittany Van Voorhees. Taking a look at the radar. So, Brad, time this out for us. What's going on right now in our area?
Yeah, we're just watching the radar right now. The storms haven't even gotten here yet, so we're still waiting for them to kind of develop to the west. We're starting to see some rain move into Cleveland and Gaston counties, but honestly, the stronger cells are back to the southwest still. So I think the areas we're going to be most concerned about this afternoon and this evening is going to be around Charlotte and south and east. And if you saw our outlook earlier, that's the area we had shaded in red. That's honestly the higher risk area for seeing some strong storms this afternoon. So potentially some areas will not see anything at all to the north as far as severe weather. And that's the one thing we want to emphasize. This is not going to be widespread, so don't anticipate one giant area of severe weather moving across the area. This will be scattered to isolated, and the bigger threat is down in this area. So if you're north and west, yeah, you could see some rain or a scattered shower, but the risk of severe is much, much lower. I mean, it's 5 times lower than what we're seeing to the south and east down here to the to areas like Union County, Lancaster, Chesterfield, Anson, Stanley, Richmond County. So location, location, location is the important part about this today as they push in from the west. The other thing, that this is probably going to be one line, maybe a line, and then some scattered showers, but it's going to be in and out fairly quickly. The number one concern we have today is wind, and that's really the setup that we're seeing unfold. Damaging straight line winds just on the edge of our high range, so that's why we have the higher risk to the south and east. Tornado risk is not very high. This is not a huge tornado risk today. It's like what we like to call a non-zero risk. Typically when we see a 5% chance of a tornado within 25 miles, that's where we're a little more concerned. This is a general 0 to 2%, which means an isolated risk. Hail is same story. Now, these two can go up if we see supercells develop, which are singular, small, discrete cells. But right now, we're not seeing that. And that means that the risk is primarily going to be wind. And as I mentioned earlier, in the stream, the risk of damaging winds is like 30%. The chance of a tornado is 2%, and the chance of hail is 15%. So you get the idea. The wind threat is by far the biggest risk. And when we give you those percentages, that's the risk within any point on the map, 25 miles from that point. So kind of gives you an idea. And sometimes people think those numbers seem pretty low, like a 2% chance of a tornado seems low. But remember, the chance of a tornado on a normal day is 0. So 2% is a huge increase from a normal day. It's not something that you see all the time. So when we start talking about these numbers, they're not the chance of rain. It's not the same kind of probability, because the chance of you getting wet without an umbrella is far different than you getting hit by a tornado or a severe thunderstorm. So the outcome of those risks are much higher than just getting caught in the rain. So we want to show you that outlook again, the severe weather outlook for our area. You see the big area in red, that's the risk for wind. That's where we see the highest risk. And so in the mountains and foothills, you notice we have the yellows and the orange here, but that risk is actually trending even down as we speak, and it's really shifting to these areas. So basically I-85 is right there. So I-85 south and east to the coast, that's where we're going to watch for the risk for severe weather. Now, we say this all the time, but it's always good to repeat this, because even if you don't use this today, this will come in handy down the road. Make sure you have 3 methods to get warnings, okay? Those 3 methods can include wireless emergency alerts. We call them WIAs. They're built into your phone. Those come through your cell phone carrier from the cell phone tower with a phone. You can turn those on and off in your settings. Just go to those and make sure they're turned on. You don't pay for those. It doesn't require an app. It doesn't use data. That's something that the FCC and your cell phone carrier provide to you. And the great thing about those, it only is if you're in the warning. So it doesn't matter what county you're in, doesn't matter where you're at. If your phone is hitting the tower in that warning, you're going to get that. Weather apps, including WCNC Charlotte's app, we will get push notifications on there. You can turn on the GPS. Watching us here, like on WCNC Plus or TV or any kind of stream, social media, but make sure it's real time. Make sure you're looking at those the timestamps on those, and turn notifications on. If you want to like follow us or follow me on X or Facebook or Instagram, I post all the warnings on my Facebook page, so you can go there. NOAA Weather Radio, you can set that to alarm. And the other way, family, friends, call, text. A lot of times we all know we have family members who maybe aren't always paying attention, and they're shocked there's actually a risk for severe weather. If you notice that their area is under the risk, you could call them, text them, and say, hey, just a heads up, we've got some severe weather heading your way. Now, Brittany Van Voorhees joins me today. She's over in the Weather Center right now. And Brittany, it's kind of interesting to see this setup today. Not all severe weather is made the same. Today, it definitely has a kind of a threat towards the wind end of it, as opposed to hail and wind. And it seems like we've had a lot of hail this spring. I see a lot of people on my social media feed that are really concerned about hail. What do you think about the hail risk today versus the wind risk?
I think it's exactly when we were together a few weeks ago when we had the hail. It's essentially the opposite. This is more of a classic Carolinas severe weather setup. We talk about this all the time, but wind is wind, and 90% of our damage from severe thunderstorms comes from wind damage. So this is a more classic setup, I think, that we typically see, where it's wind is number 1, hail is number 2, tornado is number 3. Now, I know you mentioned this during your vlog, but anytime that we get some of that colder air in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the freezing level may be a little bit lower, we have that risk for hail. But it also is one of the reasons why our risk for gusty straight line winds is higher, because of that cold air that needs to happen in those mid levels in order to get downburst winds. Think about how cold and dense cold air is. Well, when it develops in the middle part of our atmosphere, this is a reason why it's so important that we have weather balloon data. We get those upper air soundings, because when we know that there's active cold air in the core of a thunderstorm that's trying to develop, it allows for that cold dense air to kind of hang out and form together. And then eventually, once it becomes too heavy and we start to see that push toward the ground, this is what can drive a downburst wind. Now, classically, when you see a severe thunderstorm warning issued, you might see 60, 70 miles per hour, but these downbursts can actually be up to 125 miles per hour. Now, that's pretty rare here in the Carolinas. We typically see about 60, 65, but sometimes you can see what's called a considerable or a destructive tag to some of those severe thunderstorm warnings, and considerable is 70 miles per hour or higher, and then, of course, we can see 80 miles per hour or higher, which is more destructive. So there's actually kind of a breakdown of the different kind of severe thunderstorm warnings that we could see, and I do think that there would be a chance that we could see one of those more intense severe thunderstorm warnings later on today. If I can find this graphic so that we can go over the different kinds here, but for now it is slipping away from me. Where is it in our system? Oh, here we go.
Bada bing, bada boom. So severe thunderstorm warnings, different criteria. Base severe thunderstorm warnings, which is again what you typically see, is about 60 miles per hour higher or quarter-size hail. Then you get to, again, 70 and 80. You're looking at considerable and destructive. If you want to be notice the difference between the two, these will come across if you have those WIAs, the wireless emergency alerts, is more urgent and have a little bit more data. If you're watching our WCNC Charlotte mobile app or our stream here, those will typically have a darker coloring around them because it brings in that considerable or destructive tag. And again, if you have the emergency alert straight to your phone, that's what's going to trigger the WIAs, is that higher risk. So I certainly could see, I think, the chance today here, Brad, for upwards of at least 70 miles an hour, because this does look like a pretty strong opportunity to see some really, really, really gusty winds today.
Yeah, what's interesting, I was just looking, and we had a new tornado watch issued for counties north now. They're not quite filling in yet. I'm not quite sure why they're not filling in, but we could see the outline. So believe it or not, we've got severe thunderstorm watch south. That's till 8 o'clock. Tornado watch, though, for the counties north of us. That does include Watauga and Ashe counties, by the way, and then stretches over towards Greensboro and Raleigh. Does not include any of our eastern counties yet, but it's not filled in. But you kind of get the idea. This is the outline. Goes to Raleigh. Basically, same type of setup, though. To the north, the low pressure is a little closer, so the risk for a tornado is a little bit higher north than it is south. So areas north are probably going to see a higher risk, and that kind of lines up with what we were looking at earlier. Okay, the counties are starting to fill in now, but you get the idea. The outline comes in first usually, then the local offices start filling in the counties. But you can see we've got the tornado watch just filling in. That is until 8 o'clock tonight for areas north. So that does include Watauga and Ashe counties. But again, the areas west, I'll emphasize this. As the first line and the second line kind of push through, there might be two broken lines of showers and storms. As it pushes through, you'll likely see those counties move. So the threat will not last till 8 o'clock for all areas. It'll be mainly for 8 o'clock east. Now, these counties, always a tough one. I don't know what will get filled in here, hopefully, with a severe thunderstorm watch, because trust me, the storms don't know where the county lines are. They're not going to jump over these areas. That's the thing about these. You know, we use man-made boundaries to put out these watches and advisories and stuff, but the weather doesn't know those exist. So just remember that just because you're not in the watch right now, if you're in and near, if you're in a county that touches it, the threat's the same. It's not like it just stops at the county line, as we like to say. So again, remember what watch means. The difference between a watch and a warning often gets confused, and you know, this graphic really does help kind of illustrate. When we're under a watch, that means the ingredients are in place for something to happen. In this case, the severe thunderstorm watch means the ingredients are there for severe weather. What is severe weather? The definition for us is 58-mile-per-hour winds or higher, or 1-inch diameter hail. Yes, a tornado is considered severe, but if that threat is higher than the tornado risk, you usually see a severe thunderstorm watch. But all thunderstorms can and do produce tornadoes with little or no warning, so it's always important to know that. When we're under a warning, that means it's actually been spotted by a person, or the radar is detecting severe weather. Now, the radar sometimes, because of the limitations of the radar, it's looking in the mid and upper levels of storms, especially the farther away from the radar you are. Sometimes we don't know what's happening at the surface, so it's issued based on what's happening in the storm. And remember, the whole point is to give you a warning before something forms. So oftentimes the warning will come out before there's a confirmed tornado or severe weather, because what's the point of a warning if we don't give you a heads up? So remember, it doesn't mean there's definitely something there. It means it's forming or it's imminent. So it's an imminent threat that is developing, and so the warning could be issued for that as well. It's always important to know that radar is a great tool for us. We know the limitations. Radar does not cover every square inch of the earth in our area uniformly. It's like a cell phone tower. When you're really far away, you get 1 bar. When you're really close, you get 5 bars. Radar is the same. The closest radar to us is Greenville-Spartanburg, then Raleigh, then Blacksburg, Virginia. So the farther away you are from those locations, the radar data isn't seeing everything. So that's why spotters are a valuable tool for us, and why we need to rely on people just as much as we rely on these great tools that we have. So let's look at the radar. What's showing us right now is the line of storms moving in from the west. And again, we're seeing some pretty good rain moving into Gaston County, but that storm doesn't look to be strong or severe right now. The one that I really have my eye on is back behind me here, and I'm going to move the map over so it's a little easier to see. These storms coming out of Greenville-Spartanburg, these definitely have kind of that look of straight line wind damage, and also areas to the south and east we have some cloud cover. So this first batch of rain, it's not great. It's going to be hitting us any minute now. We're not expecting severe with this, but this could help stabilize things to the north, which actually would be a good thing overall. I want to show you the satellite data just because I want to see where the clear skies are. We'll kind of widen it out. And you can kind of see this setup. I mentioned on my vlog today, this is kind of like an ideal setup. Low pressure here, trailing cold front, warm, humid air ahead of it. It's like if you were to draw a textbook version, like, hey, what would be a severe weather setup? This is kind of it. Now, the one thing that's helping us out is at the time of day, yeah, it is in the afternoon, but we're not anywhere near peak heating. If this system had slowed down by 2 hours, we probably would have an even higher risk of severe weather because we would have had time to get that hot, humid air in here. Either way, there's so much wind energy here, it could make up for the lack of that instability. But the areas with sunshine, that's why the areas south and east, highest risk for seeing strong storms. But also notice there's this secondary line that's trying to develop right there. That's something we'll have to watch carefully. I'm going to zoom in on that because this line here is also, so there seems to be 2 separate lines developing, one here to the south and one to the north. So until both of those move through, I think we're going to have a risk for some strong and severe storms through, I think 6 o'clock is probably what I would base this on. And this is the outlook we're talking about. Brittany was talking about this earlier. This area in red is primarily there for the risk of damaging winds. Now to the north, even though they're in the medium, or what we call the orange level there, there's actually a little bit higher risk of a tornado up there, about 5% chance. Down here, it's about 2%. But that risk of wind is right now around 30% as it moves through. So that's why the risk is definitely elevated up there. The good news so far, no warnings.
Warnings, at least not anytime soon. Brad,
Yeah.
I'm curious, just your personal opinion. Are you surprised that they included Ashland, Watauga County in that tornado watch, just because we are still technically under that low risk?
Yeah, I think the reason is that little broken line. You can see on the radar here, this little line that formed. That's the actual cold front. So I think because that line hadn't moved through, I think they wanted to include Ash and Watauga counties just for that line. I think once that line moves through, you might see those counties removed from the watch altogether. It does look like we do have some warnings up to the north now, a couple severe thunderstorm warnings as you go up into West Virginia. So this is interesting. When you see the outline in orange there, that means there's a tornado tag, meaning those potentially could have a tornado in there. So you're seeing some warnings to the north already. Those are a couple severe thunderstorm warnings around Bluefield in the Beckley area. So you're traveling north on 77 right at the West Virginia line, the tunnel there going into West Virginia. So these storms here, and anytime you see a severe thunderstorm warning where we have orange outlining it, that's kind of a visual cue for us. It says this has a tornado tag in it, meaning that this is a severe thunderstorm warning, but there is a potential for a tornado to form with little or no warning. So yeah, Brittany, I think that's why, because that line right there is moving through the mountains, and that's an area where they probably want to watch for the next hour until that line clears out of the area.
Yeah, remember, of course, as Brad showed you a second ago, the cupcake watch. If the ingredients are favorable, doesn't mean something has happened. We were talking about, or I was talking about this earlier, Brad, with Carlene and Nick on the Impact stream, but also a good reminder to folks that if you are getting your weather information today as one of your ways via streaming, there is still that delay on streaming compared to linear. So when you get a heads up from whether it's us telling you, hey, nothing's been called yet, for a tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning, but we think something will, or we get early data that we know something is, there's more urgency when it comes to streaming just because of that delay, because it can be upwards of 10 seconds to even 30 seconds depending on how far away, as you mentioned, you are, your internet provider, things like that. So just remember, when you get data during severe weather from streaming, there is kind of that quicker urgency compared to regular linear cable TV. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons when we do the storm tracks, Brittany, I always like to say, don't use this time exactly, plus or minus about 5 minutes, because first of all, I mean, this is a great tool, but precision isn't the same as accuracy. Just because we're giving you an exact time is kind of like your GPS, GPS is so great. You put it in your phone, you drive there. But if you go on a long trip, how often do you get there at the exact same time? You get there within a couple minutes because, you got traffic, you're going to stop, get gas, go to the bathroom, whatever. So these storms, there's going to be a little buffer there. So plus or minus about 5-10 minutes. Don't read too exact. And this time is the time that I'm telling you about. As Brittany mentioned, if there's a delay, it might be already past this time by the time you're seeing this. And we like to say everything's live, but it's actually not. It takes time for the signal to get to you. Just like the radar isn't live. One of the things about radar is that sweep line is going around. It's basically taking a picture once a minute as it sweeps around. So when you see this show up,
it takes another minute for it to take another picture. So it's like taking a picture of traffic. That's where the car was when you snapped the picture. The car is now over here. So these storms are moving, and when you're taking a snapshot of a moving object, it's not where it is right now. That's where it was. So we always like to kind of give you a little jump kind of ahead. But that's a quick timeline of the rain. This is just good old-fashioned rain right now. We're not expecting that to be severe, but the southern extent. So I'm particularly looking at York, Chester, Lancaster County. Those areas probably have a higher chance of seeing a severe thunderstorm warning right now than I would say the Charlotte area north. Let's go up into the mountains because I want to track those storms as well. These are moving in from the west. So if you're in Avery, Ashwaubenon counties, yeah, these storms definitely have a little bit higher chance of producing some hail and then possibly an isolated tornado. So Boone heads up, looks like 2 o'clock, 212. It's 149 right now. Jefferson 218, Blowing Rock 222, and then pushing East Meat Camp 205 up there, Banner Elk. So we're talking Avery, Ashwaubenon counties under the threat from those storms moving in. Let me look at the velocity data on these real quickly. I don't see anything that looks like it's spinning right now up in those areas, but I'll look up into Virginia as well just to keep an eye on the storms up there. Yeah, nothing looks too bad right now. And that's really what we'll be watching is the velocity data, which is the Doppler's ability to tell you which way the winds are blowing within these storms. Let me look at the closer in here. Yeah, so far these storms coming into Cleveland and Gaston County, there's not much wind. All the wind is right at the radar, which is a Mountain Island Lake. This is the terminal Doppler radar. This is a smaller radar. We call it a C-band radar. This is what the FAA uses for planes landing at Charlotte Douglas. This is primarily to detect wind shear. It's not the full dual pole Doppler radar that we have at GSP, but it does give us an indication of wind pretty well. It doesn't do a great job with rain or other parameters, but it does give us a good idea on the wind. So you see the rain moving into Charlotte right now. So it's going to be wet along 77 from Statesville down to the lake and then back into Charlotte and then back down towards Lake Wiley. So the rain is here and all of Gaston County looks to be in that rain right now. In fact, I think I still have the Dallas camera up. This is our Dallas camera, our Mr. Sparky camera network over in Dallas. And you can see, yep, it's coming down there. The lens is wet. Got some low clouds there. We're almost in the cloud deck up here at 1,450 feet. So we're way up there. So again, we're gonna leave you here in a minute. We're gonna go do a quick cut in here on WCNC. We'll give you an update here on the watches. Tornado watch north, severe thunderstorm watch. Both of these up until 8 o'clock, but the threat will not last till 8. It will end long before that. We'll have another update coming up in a minute, but we're gonna jump over on WCNC TV in just a minute, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Brad, for those updates. This is a live look in Gastonia. When we first took this look in this view, Carlene, it was pretty decent outside.
Yeah, I mean, it was cloudy.
Yeah, it was cloudy.
And now, I mean, it's actually lightened up a little bit since we've been keeping an eye on it during Brad's reporting. And, I mean, the ballpark's soaked.
Yeah, it is soaked. And the rain droplets right there on the camera makes it look like it's coming down a lot harder than it actually is, but it's a steady rain coming down there.
You want to see something scary?
Yeah, this is an ominous look here in uptown Charlotte. Looking at that radar that Brad showed, that rain is right there, almost here in Charlotte, if not here already. Again, he said it best. You know, when you're looking at the radar, when you're looking at this the stream, account for maybe a 5 minute or a few minutes delay, right? You just want to be prepared and not just say, hey, this is happening right now. Just think about it on a slight delay for your safety. But this is a look I see. Let's go back to our weather impact team. Here you go.
With WCNC Charlotte, bringing you a weather impact update here on our storms that we have today. Of course, a weather alert in effect. We've been talking about this for a few days now for the Charlotte area, really from all the way toward the immediate coastline, all the way toward the mountains. Now you can see the biggest risk here is going to be from Charlotte, Queen City, all the way down toward the beach. So we're including Columbia here. Myrtle Beach actually goes all the way down into parts there of Georgia, including Savannah, essentially that sliver there all the way toward the coastline. So this is something folks definitely need to be weather aware about. as we see these storms moving in. Now, the reason why this area in red is shaded, and one of the reasons why we are completely in agreement on this, is that there's been a lot of cloud cover still lingering for these areas a little bit further north, limiting some of that severe storm potential. But we have all of this warm, moist air coming in from the south and west that's really cranking things up as we're heading closer to this forecast. So here's the look at the storm potentials pretty much now till 6 o'clock. Our biggest impact is going to be winds, gusty winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. Large hail also a possibility, and an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out. We call this a near zero risk, so it's not necessarily a zero, but it is a very, very low risk for a quick spin up. It is certainly not a tornado classic setup today, so folks are encouraged to stay weather aware, have multiple ways to get warnings. That includes the WCNC Charlotte mobile app, as well as staying updated on linear TV, WCNC Plus, where we actually go in a little bit more in depth in terms of storm activity, and we'll be streaming, of course, even when there isn't actively something going on to tell you about in terms of any watches or warnings. Here's what's currently happening. We have rain starting to push into the Piedmont, pushing into Mecklenburg County. This is not severe. This area here extending from Greenville, South Carolina, over toward I-85 there, just south of Cleveland County into northern York. This area we are going to be watching for some really gusty winds here within the next 30 minutes or so for portions of York County. Again, right now it's moving pretty much right over the Greenville-Spartanburg area, right along the I-85 corridor. Again, as it continues to push a little bit further south, these storms are certainly flying. So we're actually going to be approaching areas in Chester by about 3 o'clock. You can see over in West Springs about 2:34. So again, this is kind of that next line that we'll be tracking here. Gusty winds certainly, maybe some smaller hail, but this is not the main system that's coming through. That's later on tonight. So you can, of course, see, or I guess technically later on this afternoon. So here's 3 and 4 o'clock. You can again see some of these cells producing really heavy rain. Not seeing a lot of support for some notches in terms of tornado, but if we can see that classic bow and arrow shape, we'll be watching those gusty winds. Again, here's 5 for 6 o'clock, and then eventually we're clearing things out pretty quickly. So there could be some lingering rain up in the mountains after 6, but that's when the main threat, at least when it comes to severe weather, is going to be over here. So again, looking at the severe weather risk, we kind of have that 1, 2, 3. Damaging winds number 1, isolated large hail number 2, and tornadoes number 3. Now, the big reason why damaging winds is number 1 is we have that classic setup with a cold front near us. You got warm, moist air coming in from the south and west, and then even colder air in the middle portions here of our atmosphere. We look at this data when it comes to weather balloons, upper air data, to know not just what's happening near the ground, but of course high up as well. And we need this cold pocket of air essentially in the middle portions of these storms. That cold, dense air actually will allow for storms to push a little bit stronger when they do push down. So that's why we get those really gusty winds, 60 plus miles an hour. So just a reminder here, watches versus warnings. Cupcake watch, taco watch, whatever way you want to say it, is essentially all the ingredients are there. Ingredients are favorable for development, and then a warning means something has happened. Here in the Charlotte area, all across the Carolinas, our severe thunderstorm warning, so that something is happening criteria, is 60-mile-per-hour winds, quarter-sized hail, or a tornado. Now, of course, if a tornado warning were to be issued, we will be live here on linear TV as well as on WCNC Plus, continuously bringing you updates. But again, today's risk is really not a tornado risk. It is mainly a wind risk here. We will continue our weather coverage streaming over on WCNC Plus.
All right, thanks so much, Brittany, for that update. All right, so we want to, I know we're weather alert today, but we want to come in with some breaking news here in Charlotte. Death investigation is underway in the Westover Division. That's according to CMPD. This is a look at the map of the general area of where the investigation is happening. So according to CMPD, detectives with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's homicide unit are conducting a death investigation in the 4400 block of Gulf Acres Drive in the Westover Division. Still limited details, but as soon as they come in, we'll make sure to pass that along. Again, that is on Gulf Acres Drive. We will get you more information as soon as we can. Now to the big story of the day, the weather. And this is a live look at uptown Charlotte. You see that camera shaking.
Just looked at this, what,
just
a couple minutes ago?
Yeah, a few minutes ago. And you see the rain coming down. You see that camera shaking. It's windy. If you're in that area, please be safe. Let's get back to weather now.
Meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees here with another update on severe storms later on today. The risk is pretty much now as we approach 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock this evening. Storms already starting to push through portions of the upstate of South Carolina. Haven't quite had any warnings yet here in the Charlotte area, but we do have a severe thunderstorm watch around for most of the metro, of course, all the way up toward the foothills. And then Ashland-Watauga County, technically right now under a tornado watch at this time. Remember, a watch means the ingredients are there for development, doesn't necessarily mean something has happened yet. So what what is the biggest impact with today's weather? Well, all of that area shaded in red. Number one impact is gusty winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. This is a classic setup for severe weather in the Carolinas. 90% of our damage from storms comes from specific wind damage. Tornado is going to be number 3. Smack dab in the middle, we have large hail. So this is a classic wind number 1, hail number 2, very low risk for a quick spin up tornado. So what do you need to do? Have multiple ways to get warnings. You can stay up to date on linear TV, WCNC Plus, our WCNC Charlotte mobile app, whatever you have to do to stay safe. And it's not just us here in the central portion of the Carolinas. We have a frontal boundary that's situated just over us, strong low pressure system north of us, which means we're bringing in all of that warm and moist air. With this classic setup, again, it's not just us inland, it is everyone from here all the way to the coast. Now we're seeing a lesser risk, I think, in this kind of middle part here of seeing some of those stronger storms when it comes to the gusty winds. That again is primarily along and south of the I-85 corridor. You can see light rain starting to push into portions of the metro. We have Cabarrus County, Gaston County, over toward Cleveland County seeing rain, but it's this storm that's probably going to produce our first risk here of seeing anything gusty wind-wise or anything severe. That'll be moving into portions there of McConnell's around 225. You can see closer to Lancaster, right along the Lancaster-York County border, closer to 3. And again, the same time frame pretty much for the metro. I think about 3 and 4 o'clock from now until then, we see our best risk, at least across the Charlotte metro area, of seeing some of those storms. And then 6 o'clock, we're still lingering a little bit further south and east, and then we're pretty much all clear after that heading into Saturday. So again, we go over the risk one more time. Primarily gusty winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. This can produce just as much damage, if not worse damage, than a tornado. So please take these severe thunderstorm warnings seriously if they are issued. Large hail, of course, will be an issue as well as a quick spin up tornado. More coverage remains on WCNC Plus.
All right, Brittany, thank you for that update. All right, so we want to get back to our breaking news that we brought to you just a few minutes ago. A death investigation underway in the Westover Division. This is a look at that map of that area of where that investigation, general area where that investigation is happening. You can see there. All right, so according to CMPD, detectives with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Homicide Unit are conducting a death investigation in the 4400 block of Golf Acres Drive in the Westover Division. Again, this, as I said before a few minutes ago, limited details on what happened, what led up to this investigation. But as soon as we get that information, we'll be sure to pass that along. But again, a death investigation in the Westover Division. This is happening along, and you see that red icon. That is where that investigation happened. That's the 4400 block of Golf Acres Drive. All right, so as soon as we get more information, we'll bring it to you here, not only here on Live Impact News and on WCNC Plus, but also on our website, WCNC.com, and then you can download our app, WCNC Charlotte. Let's get back to the weather. This is a live look over Lake Norman.
Yep.
So you saw that camera earlier.
I saw this, this camera, I've been looking at it, a couple minutes ago, and it was gray and cloudy,
Yeah.
but I didn't see the rain starting. Now,
It's coming down. It's coming down. It is coming down. We've seen that rain. We've seen just the evolution of these live shots where it's.
That poor guy's on the boat right there.
Oh,
sir.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
Yeah,
you're getting soaked.
Look, if you're out there in that area, there's a couple of people there on the boats. Be safe. Be safe.
Get inside.
Get inside. We want you to be safe out here as we are weather alert today. Let's show Uptown.
Yeah.
This is Uptown. You see that rain is coming out. The skies have cleared a little bit there. It looks like it from this angle.
Yeah.
The rain is still coming down. You see those raindrops there on the camera there. Uptown soaked right now. So just make sure if you're up. I told you maybe 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago when it was clear. It was cloudy. I want to say clear, but it wasn't raining yet. If you're walking your dog, you're getting lunch, it's safe to do so.
Right.
Hopefully you're not doing that right now. Hopefully you are.
You're inside listening to us.
Hopefully you're inside listening to us, and just keeping a track of what Brad and Brittany and our weather impact team is telling you as far as the storm system. So yeah, it is one of those Fridays where we are dealing with storms, rains, cloudy weather. Is this Carowinds?
This is Carowinds right here.
This is a look at Carowinds. I haven't seen this view of Carowinds before.
This is the whole park. You see people down there on the
walking
to the park.
And I don't want to. I do want to continue to say this. I don't want to sound redundant, but I think it's necessary. Be safe. Carowinds is open. There's a lot of open space there. Be safe as these storms roll in. We see people there enjoying themselves. Look, I know you want to have a good time. It's Friday. It is a fun park, but be safe.
Be safe.
So our weather impact team has been doing a great job tracking this storm system as it moves through our area. We've showed you these live looks and these live pictures. I want to toss it back now to Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, who is the radar's right behind you, Brad. So what's going on right behind you?
He's got we've been pretty tame with our weather. We haven't seen anything remotely severe, just good old-fashioned rain moving in, which is what you want to see. But the areas we're going to watch are two areas that I'm concerned about for the next hour or so. It's going to be these areas south and east of 85. So if you live north and west of Charlotte, you're probably just going to see rain. You're not worried too much about severe. But York County, Chester County, Lancaster, Union County, those storms to the south definitely have the potential to be severe. So I kind of highlighted this area. Highest severe risk is going to be south and east. But that's not the only area. There is one other area which is north and west, but much further north and west, and that's going to be up in the mountains right here. A couple storms moving into here. So Watauga, Ashe, maybe Wilkes County, Upper Caldwell. This area right in here, there is some sunshine out here, and that little line we'll have to watch because there is a potential one or two of those could be severe. But the moral of the story in all this is once these lines move through, that's it. I mean, it's in and out. So this is not going to be something that's going to ruin your completely ruin your evening. Once we get these storms out of here, we're going to be kind of one and done with a lot of these storms. And that's what you want to see because people just want to know so you can plan. You know, when are we going to see the storms arrive? Well, we're seeing showers of storms right now, right at 2 o'clock. And the good news, these do not look to be too strong. So I'm not really concerned about severe weather currently in areas north of Charlotte. It's really the area south. And we'll focus in on the storm in particular that we've been watching coming out of Cherokee County, South Carolina, as well as Union County, South Carolina. There are some pretty strong winds here. So in York County and Chester County, those would be the two areas that we probably need to watch the closest here over the next, I'd say, hour or so. And it really is probably the next hour, between 2 and 3. Once we get to 4 or 5, we're going to start shifting towards the Sand Hills and some of our South Carolina counties to the south and east. But I want to quickly show you the watch, which is in effect. We've got 2 of them. To the north, it's a tornado watch. That includes Avery's not in anything. It's just Ashe and Watauga counties, Wilkes County for folks up there, and areas just to our north. That includes Greensboro and Raleigh. To the south, severe thunderstorm watch. Why is there a difference? Well, slightly higher chance for an isolated tornado north. To the south, can't rule that out, but the potential is much more for straight line winds. So just a subtle difference, but it should bear repeating that regardless of what type of watch you're in, there's potential for a severe thunderstorm, which includes large hail, damaging winds, and isolated tornadoes. So all those areas could see that. But for our area in the severe thunderstorm watch, we talked about this earlier, our number one concern is going to be straight line winds. It's a 30% chance of straight line winds. Hail is probably second, and then tornado down there. Flooding, though, I do want to mention the flooding risk because while I don't expect widespread flooding, there's one area that was hit really hard last night by a very slow-moving, just tremendous downpour storm. That was northern Stanley County, and I want to focus on that real quickly. If I can actually pull up my rainfall estimates over the last 24 hours. Look at this area around New London, north of Albemarle. This area was absolutely inundated with heavy rain last night. I'm going to put some totals on. Now, radar estimates is 7 inches, but some of the actual surface reports around 3 to 5 inches of rain. And a lot of that fell in about a 2-hour time period. So any rain that falls here certainly could cause flash flooding. And this really kind of emphasizes the localized nature of flash flooding. Some areas saw no rain at all last night, but one pocket right here saw water rescues and flash flooding. So because of that, that's why I don't want to discount the fact that there is at least a chance for some isolated flash flooding. But overall, the risk of severe is going to stay to our south and east. Now, it's pouring in parts of our area. We can go over to Gaston County. This is where we're seeing some of the heaviest rainfall right now. This is a look from our Dallas camera, kind of a cool view here because we've got the cloud deck, but we've also got some low clouds and obviously rain on the lens here as the rain is falling in Gaston County. This is just good old-fashioned rain. I have not seen much in the way of lightning. In fact, I'm going to look at a couple different sources here. Not a lot of lightning data showing anything in our area right now. The only areas that are showing significant lightning is just a little bit further south, and we'll show you that on the radar. That's that storm coming out of Cherokee and Union County, South Carolina. This is just good old-fashioned rain. So all in all, so far so good. I mean, if there's one thing about tracking this, obviously we'll keep an eye on it, but watch these storms as they get over in this area. That would be an area where we could potentially see them perk back up. Let me quickly show you the future cast because I want to show you, we do the short range future cast quite a bit. And the future cast we can show you that runs every hour, goes out to 18 hours. It's a real rapid refresh model, we call it. So it runs with what's happening right now. And this is going to show you quickly kind of where we anticipate the storms. We're not seeing much to the north, and really this is the only thing that's verifying right now pretty significantly. We'll go through time here, and you can see by 3 o'clock, this will be shifting east, but look at the flare up here. So if there's one thing we'll need to watch, right now it's 2:09. In an hour from now, these storms, Wadesboro, Albemarle, Rockingham, Lancaster, Monroe, that's where we could see them perk back up. If you're up here, I would expect by this time we're going to see the watch be whittled away, meaning some of the counties will be taken out. We'll go to 4 o'clock. You see a secondary line trying to form. This is that line coming out of the mountains. Probably not going to have enough energy to do much, but there could be a little shower with that. We get closer to 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You see everything out of here. So we'll likely see the watches either canceled or pushed off to the east, and then we get into the past sunset, it's all gone. So that's the good news. So if you've got evening plans after, like dinner and after, you might be okay. It's really going to be the mid-afternoon plans that are being impacted by the rain right now. So let's take a quick look at the rain that's moving in. Again, just good old-fashioned rain, nothing too severe out there, not much cloud to ground lightning, and not much wind right now. So Brittany, so far so good. Brittany Van Voorhees is in the Weather Center with me here, and so far so good. We have not seen a lot of lightning and really anything remotely severe. We might luck out, and this might stabilize things and keep us pretty safe for most of the afternoon.
It's like the best news that you can say. Of course, you can always get people weather aware and stay weather alert, but when things start to stabilize early, it's never necessarily a bad thing. And I think that rain, regardless, is something that we, of course, will watch, especially as we talked about yesterday, the drought monitor improving so much. But again, as Brad mentioned, the best chance to see any kind of severe weather right now and really throughout this evening is going to be the Charlotte area and south toward the immediate coastline. So Columbia, Charleston, Wilmington, Myrtle Beach, all under the gun. Not just here in the Charlotte area, but if you have friends or family and they're shaded in red or even orange, please make sure that they know what is going on. As Brad mentioned earlier, it's kind of the classic setup for any kind of severe storms because we have a frontal boundary that's essentially situated right over us. The warm and moist air is coming in from the south and southwest, and then we got a big low pressure system. So this is why I've said a few times, and of course he has as well, that this is a really classic Carolina setup with gusty winds being number 1, hail of course being number 2, and then number 3, that quick spin up tornado potential. Just a reminder, of course, that if you do see anything and you can safely take a picture or video, we would love to see it here at WCNC, not just to show it on air or online, but also we can pass that information along to the National Weather Service. It's one of the ways that they have, they can verify their forecast, and of course we can share it with our viewers as well to kind of give everyone a better picture. Brad, I believe that you said this during your vlog earlier, but just to remind folks, not everybody is going to see storms today. If you are in Cherville and you don't, but someone in Gastonia does, just a reminder that it doesn't necessarily mean everybody is going to see storms. So just be mindful that even if it's not bad for you, it could be bad for your neighbor or someone who lives a few miles away from you. So it's certainly not a widespread risk where everyone sees it, but the storms that do develop do have that potential for not just the gusty winds, but the quarter-size hail. So while it's not as big of a hail risk as we were with you last time in a similar kind of back and forth setup, park that car in a garage under a carport if you can.
That was a rare setup, Brittany. I remember that day. We don't normally see a hail risk that high. That was a significant hail risk and ended up being one of our biggest hail days in over a year. for the number of hail reports. So I know a lot of folks have commented, I think it seems like we've had a lot of hail this year. We kind of did in that event, but overall there hasn't been anything that's been crazy for hail reports. But I did remember talking to someone saying, hey, remember, severe thunderstorm criteria is 1-inch diameter hail. So all severe thunderstorms technically have the potential for 1-inch hail and damaging winds. Severe weather to all of us can mean something different, but when there's a warning issue, there's actually a specific set of criteria. 58-mile-per-hour winds or 1-inch diameter hail. Could have both or one of the two, and that would be a severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm warnings aren't issued for intense lightning or loud thunder or even heavy rain. There could be flood warnings issued for heavy rain, and tornado watch or tornado warnings obviously issued for tornadoes, but severe thunderstorms can produce tornadoes as well. So it's really important to know the criteria that we have, and because today is kind of a unique day where we've got significant threat for damaging winds more so than anything else. This is the damaging wind risk, and if you look at the area in red, that's a 30% chance of seeing damaging wind gusts within 25 miles of any point on the map, which is a good indication too. It's not going to happen in every location 25 miles from any point. Let's look at the hail risk now. The hail risk for our area, much smaller. You can see 5% in yellow, but then you look at the 15% to the north and east, and if you see hash marks, which are the black dashed lines, that would mean significant, large hail. So that's really not that high. And then finally, the tornado risk, which we can show you. Hopefully I have the right day turned on here. Which is not turned on. So I'll actually do that as I'm talking to you. So the tornado risk will show you the same probabilities, but look at the numbers. They're a little bit lower. So let me make sure I have the right day turned on because, yep, this is day 2. So we'll turn on day 1, which will make this easier. So the tornado risk, that's our tornado risk for today. So you can see the yellow is a 2% chance, and the yellow is the orange is the 5% chance. So that's where the tornado watch is to the north. So you can see areas from Greensboro, Raleigh, up towards areas towards Richmond and Roanoke, and then up towards Baltimore and DC. That's where the tornado risk. Now remember, these numbers are lower, 2, 5, 10, 15, those seem like low numbers. Every time you show it's like, because people think of rain chances, and why wouldn't you? Because we show you percentages in rain chance. But the thing to remember, on any given day, a normal day where there's no weather, the chance of a tornado is 0. So if you go to a 2% chance, that's a 200% increase in the chance of seeing a tornado. It's a significant increase, right? So you just got to be very cautious on these days. And the difference between a rain chance and tornado chance is much different. Just getting wet running to your car without an umbrella because of a rain chance is no big deal. Chance of getting hit by a tornado, that could be a life-threatening situation. So it's always important to know the risk that's associated with that probability, not just the probability. They're not all created equal. So a day like today, a 2% chance is not significant. 5% is where we start getting our attention. 10% would be a day that we definitely are much more concerned. But overall, the risk for wind is by far the biggest issue. And so far, that's not even really coming to fruition yet because we haven't seen a lot of wind damage or any of those Boeing echoes that we were expecting. But right there, kind of just touching our high level. But that's why the risk for severe weather is with us today. And we talked about where that potential could be the highest. Again, it's not so much north and west of Charlotte, even around Charlotte. It's going to be south and east. So let me focus in on these areas. I'm going to stop. And you can see the storms developing. These areas right in here. So think of York County, Chester County, Lancaster, Union, Chesterfield, Anson, Richmond, probably parts of Stanley County, and then all areas south and east, because that's where the sun has been out, and now we're at 2:15. We still got time for things to heat up. Peak heating starts about 3 o'clock. In the afternoon and goes through about sunset. Sunset's not until 8:30 this time of year. So peak heating actually happens more in the evening than it does mid-afternoon. And the hottest part of the day is right before sunset, the hours before sunset. Midsummer, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 o'clock being peak heating, and that's when you can get the biggest storms. So the fact that we've got these storms moving into these areas just now at 2 o'clock, and there is some breaks in the cloud cover down here, that's where we'll have the potential. But honestly, overall, that does not look like it's doing much. I am not really concerned with that at all. Just looking at the radar in the setup there. But we are seeing new cells develop, so we got to watch those. Up to the north, there's a little broken line moving through the mountains. So this is kind of a secondary line. This is actually the cold front itself, it looks like. This is what we would call a prefrontal trough. So that little line of clouds moving through and showers is likely associated with the cold front itself. And I'll widen this out, and you can see the setup. There's our low pressure system. That's the churn in the atmosphere. That's why to the north, there's more of a potential for rotating storms or tornadoes. This is the cold front coming through here. These storms moving out ahead. So all this shifting to the east. So we'll keep an eye on areas south and east. But right now, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that we're not seeing much develop here across the Charlotte area, and really could kind of save us from seeing anything significant. The one thing I will tell you is this is going to move through quickly. So if you have evening plans and you're going to go to dinner or you got something after 6 o'clock, you should be completely fine because this is going to move through between now and 6 o'clock. So this is through 4 o'clock. You see the main batch shifting off to the east. Still a broken line there. That's that line that's in the mountains. Should be there right around 4 o'clock or so. And then we go to 5, 6 o'clock, post dinner time. Yeah, there's a few showers here and there, but for the most part, the winds are shifting to the northwest. Okay, when you get a northwest wind, you're not going to see storms redevelop because they got to be fed by southerly winds. So the only areas that would still see potential down here, that's a downsloping flow that dries, that kind of stabilizes things. So that's why if you get to dinner time, you're going to be good. It's between now and dinner time that we watch. And then the weekend, looking great for Saturday and Sunday. So we'll get this system out here and actually shaping up to be a pretty nice weekend overall. So Brittany, so far so good. I have not seen anything that catches my eye right now. We don't even have many special weather statements for these cells, except for the one that's coming out of, it looks like, Cherokee County into York County. We might have to keep an eye on that one right now.
Yeah, the only one that I was watching that again, not severe storm criteria, but I noticed we're seeing some almost what looked like bowing out was this little area between Cabarrus County, Concord, down toward Unionville. It doesn't look, again, it's nothing severe, but if you look at the velocity data, this is kind of how we measure how much wind there is. We're plotting on some 30 miles per hour. I saw 45 there. There's 46. That's near Midland, between Midland and Unionville, so about southern Cabarrus County into northern Union County. So even if it's not necessarily severe criteria, certainly impacting this area with some gusty winds here very shortly. So again, if you're in this area, again, that's northern Union County and into Cabarrus County and eventually Stanley. So not severe thunderstorm criteria quite yet, but we are seeing some 45-mile-per-hour wind gusts, which, I mean, that's pretty gusty. Not necessarily again severe, but it is certainly gusty as well. So I'll put on a track here in a second so we can get this situated, and you can kind of see exactly where it is. So Big Lake around 223. We have Albemarle around 238, and then about El Dorado around 301, and then Troy about 307. So again, those are moving pretty quickly as well, Brad, but watching those gusty winds too.
Yeah, that little area, and it's moving into an environment that's probably going to be a little bit more favorable for storms to keep going. The other area, that area where Brittany was focused on, Charlotte looks okay, and then you go south and west to Charlotte, that's where the other area. So this little cluster here definitely bears watching. This is what I'm focused on right now, because if I look at the velocity data here, we are getting some pretty good winds. So this part of the storm, this is a Cherokee County, just north of Gaffney or south of Gaffney there. This is Union County, South Carolina. This is York County. So it's moving in from the west. So there's likely going to be some gusty winds. If we're going to see a warning out of there, or maybe these little cells, which are showing some interesting features as well. Let's look at that closer, because there's a couple of these little cells that are popping up now. One developed near Rock Hill, Fort Mill, another one near York, and then one between McConnell's and Lowry. So this is something to keep an eye on. This is the area south of Charlotte that we got to watch, because the atmosphere is a little more robust here. We're also getting a lot of cloud to ground lightning back to the west here. Let me look at the velocity data closer in. Don't see anything too significant here, but those cells definitely have my attention, because they're not weakening. They look like they're actually intensifying. This is just good old rain. The two areas that Brittany was focused on there, that one moving towards Stanley County and Union County, and then this. So this is kind of the leading edge of this cluster of showers as it's pushing east. And the environment here is definitely much more favorable. I'm going to look at the CAPE values, which is our thunderstorm fuel. See how it's spiking. So it is definitely, these areas, the thunderstorm fuel is jumping a little bit. Also, we have a little bit of STP, which is what we call significant tornado parameter, especially down in this area. Not that that always means you're going to get a tornado, but the significant tornado parameter is what we call a composite indice. It takes a lot of things like wind shear, CAPE, and puts them into one product. So you've got some ingredients there for at least severe weather at a minimum. So we might see some of our first warnings of the day down in that area as I'm looking at it right now.
Also an interesting day where we have most of our warnings happening before the newscast.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. The timing of this is kind of really interesting because typically this is a little bit before peak heating, as I was mentioning. The warmest part of the day, our high temperatures, so the high temperature for the day, typically this time of year comes in around 4:30 to 5:30. So that's the warmest part of the day. The fact that we're at 1 to 2:30 now, we don't even have the warmest part of the day. So that's why until this line moves through and we get past that peak heating, there's still the chance that storms could perk up. So I would not be shocked to see the storms re-intensify. And then we've got this secondary line, which is intriguing as well, because up in here we've had some breaks in the clouds. In fact, let me look at the satellite data. If I put up the wrong satellite, we're not pulling up tropical data, we'll pull up satellite data, visible satellite data here, just to see how much cloud cover there is. So this is the visible loop. And you can see there are some breaks in the clouds up here. And then ahead of that line, it's moving into Charlotte. So yeah, the sun is out in these areas here. So this is why there's probably the chance for these storms to intensify. There is a little bit of sunshine right there in the foothills. That's what I was anticipating. So yeah, so there's two areas of sunshine, one there and one here. There's storms here and storms there. So they're moving into environments that potentially could still be severe and produce severe weather. So we'll have to watch that carefully. The two lines, so we basically got two areas we're watching. This little cluster, which doesn't look like much, but this one, because they're both moving to an area where we have the potential for some stronger storms. Just checking to see, I'm looking at my CAPE values in that area to see how much they're spiking, because, and actually I'm going to bring that up so you guys can see this on the stream as well. CAPE is something, it's a term we use, it's a meteorological term, convectively available potential energy. We love acronyms. That's storm fuel. Just plain and simple, that's what it is. It's storm fuel. It's warm, humid air at the surface. And so this tells you how much fuel the storm has. Think of it as gasoline for your car. Sometimes though, you can have a ton of gasoline, but no engine or vehicle to put it in. It's not going to do anything. This happens sometimes in weather. You can have a whole bunch of fuel and have no storm for that fuel to feed off of. So it's not always about the fuel, but the fact that we have storms already tells me, yeah, we've got some. So look at this. We're going to go to 5 o'clock. So you can see the line is pushing east. Yeah, there's some perks of higher levels in the moderate range to low range. If you get into the brighter yellows and almost white, that's off the charts kind of fuel. But you see how the line pushes through fairly quickly. So this is 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Notice how that goes up a little bit. That's just because it's peak heating. 5 o'clock, as I mentioned, peak heating. So until that line moves through, which it's 6 o'clock. Whoops, went a little too quick there. That's why I think 6 o'clock is kind of like, once that line moves through there, there's no more fuel for storms. So that's why anything that forms would weaken, and then this will push off to the east and kind of be one and done. So that's what you want to see. You want to see this calm down pretty quickly, because not that we want to see severe weather, but sometimes just the waiting and anticipation is the worst part of this. So once you get the storms, you like to get them in and out quickly, so you know, hey, we made it through that first line, we're done. We don't have to worry about any storms, and then you could go about your normal day. So there's a look at the line. I'll do a quick storm track on these. I have them moving at 30 miles per hour, but we're going to have to keep looking at this to make sure they're not changing winds or changing speeds on us. But I'm going to do a real short track here just to keep you an idea. And we'll put it right there. So that's kind of the timeline here between now and basically almost 4 o'clock. So this is what we anticipated between 2 and 3 for Charlotte, and then 4 to 5 off to the east, and then later down and out of here. So this is going to be over fairly quickly. And Brittany, you're right. It's kind of shocking to see everything out of here before the newscast even starts, but that could be the case for most of our area.
Yeah, especially with these two little clusters, as you showed, essentially getting right into those areas prior to the peak heating of the day. Because normally you need that instability in fuel to kick things off. But when you have the combination of that cold front and that low pressure you talked about earlier, that essentially is helping things out, at least right now. It looks like some of those storms are intensifying on the western side of York County, just kind of pushing out of Gaffney there into parts of western New York. So I would definitely be keeping a close eye on that if I'm in southern York County. So anything south of Rock Hill, down toward Chester as well. We're talking McConnell's, Hickory Grove, places like that. Probably within the next 30 minutes to an hour. But again, as Brad mentioned, we're still going to be watching. Ooh, computer always does what you want it to do when you want it to do it. That's the graphic I was looking for earlier, the severe thunderstorm warning criteria. But we'll also have to watch this kind of secondary line that's on the back end near the mountains. And then still seeing pretty good strength and a little bit of a rotation, kind of little comma looking shape here with some of that bow and arrow. I know, Brad, you mentioned this earlier, but anytime you see the bow and arrow shape, it essentially is showing the fact that you have strong winds kind of pushing in. So as we see that, again, we know it's not severe criteria, but I mean, 40 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, still pretty gusty wind activity. So the one thing we want folks to know is that, yes, there's a chance if you see this rain in the metro that you don't see that additional rain on the back end when we see that secondary line, but it doesn't mean that it for sure your risk is over. A lot of times we have so much confidence that, okay, once the line moves through, it's over. In this case, we do have to watch that secondary line. So about 6 o'clock, that will kind of be the time frame that we're looking at this wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm starting to get hyper focused on the upstate of South Carolina where you just were talking about, because as you were talking, Brittany, I was looking at a couple of those cells a little closer, and this is definitely the area. If we're going to see a warning, I think we might get a severe thunderstorm warning here shortly for York and Chester. This cell right here in particular, and then these two, they got rotation in them.
Yeah.
So
I actually just saw that GSP just put out a notification about that.
Yeah, so let's look at the wind speed. Look at the wind speeds coming into York County right now. So I'm surprised we don't have a warning yet. There is a what we call a special weather statement for 50-mile-per-hour winds, which is just below criteria for severe thunderstorm warning, 58, remember. But just to give you an idea on the velocity data there, you can see some of the wind speeds in here. They're getting close to severe, so this could be our first warning of the day coming shortly for York County. But let me show you these other two cells which have my attention. One is a little bit farther southwest, but this cell is in the upstate. That's got some significant rotation right there, that one in particular. And then there's another one a little bit further south here. I'm going to move the map here that has my attention down to the south. So we've got two cells, this one in particular. No tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning. This is Greenville, South Carolina, by the way. That's Greer, where the radar is, the GSP airport, and then Spartanburg. So got to watch that one because that one's tracking south and east. But this kind of shows you what we were talking about. These areas south and east where I've highlighted the highest severe risk. I don't have my box there. But this is the area down in here where the potential for severe weather is definitely going to remain the highest right now. And there's actually an uptick in lightning. So for the first time today, we're starting to see the lightning uptick here. Let me really quickly show you the lightning data. If I can grab my lightning data, where is my lightning? We'll query the lightning data here just to see how many strikes we got. We'll draw a box over this. And again, we're seeing about 8 strikes, cloud to cloud, or cloud to ground, excuse me, not including cloud to cloud, which there could be quite a few of that, but there's definitely a jump in lightning in this area as well. So would not be surprised if we start to see some warnings issued. In fact, we're going to get pretty close, I think, to a warning here. This one right here, this cell, I'll zoom in on this. This is actually out of our area, but obviously online. There's no such thing as a viewing area. So you can see this is in the upstate, southeast of Williamston, Princeton area. The reason I'm watching that carefully, it's got a little of appendage on it. Right here, there's a little bit of rotation. That's an indication that the reflectivity data is showing rotation, but also just looking at the velocity data, there's clear rotation in this storm. So what you're looking at are the greens are towards the radar, so they're pushing up in this way. The reds are away from the radar, so they're like this. So there is broad rotation. If we see that rotation shrink up where they get closer together, that could mean a tightening circulation. Right now, this is an indication of a rotating updraft in the storm right here. And again, this is way down. This is 26. All right, going up into the Greenville-Spartanburg area. So this is still pretty far to the southwest. And I'll widen it out just so you get an idea of where this is in relation to us. So there's Greenville, Spartanburg, there's the western sides of York and Chester County. So, you know, we got to watch that because this is all moving east. So if I'm in Chester County, I'm watching these storms carefully to the west. And in York County, there's no warning yet, but there's some pretty strong winds moving into the county right now. Yeah, even on our velocity data from our radar up at Mountain Island Lake, which is the FAA radar that we look at quite a bit, it's showing some pretty strong winds there as well, around 45 miles per hour. Now the negative side, people are always like, what, how do you have a negative wind speed? The negative tells us the direction, okay? If winds are going at the radar, it's a negative number, right? Because it's coming at you. If it's going away, it's a positive number. So that's why there's a plus or minus sign, because it tells us the direction of that wind speed. So the negative number is towards the radar, which is up towards Mountain Island Lake. So we've got 45-mile-an-hour winds, probably why we're not seeing a warning yet, because that's a little bit better sample of the low levels of the atmosphere from that radar. So we're seeing just below severe criteria. But nonetheless, if you have outdoor furniture, you know, trampoline, anything outside, not secured, you're going to want to secure it in York County. So York County, Rock Hill, McConnells, York, Chester, maybe all the way down to Richburg. I would say the whole panhandle of Lancaster County and western parts of Union County. I'd be on guard here for the next hour or so until those storms move through, because they definitely look like they're intensifying slightly. That's the area of greatest concern right now, Brittany. We're going to have to watch, I think, if we're going to see something spin up.
And that, of course, is us. We're talking about, you know, York County, Chester County, but then you can kind of see that swath goes all the way down into parts of the upstate, as you mentioned, and even obviously into Georgia as well. So
yeah.
If you have friends or family in any of South Carolina, they need to especially be keeping an eye on kind of the tail end of this line, because that's where most of the lightning strikes and most of the heavy rain is right now.
Yeah, it definitely has the potential that we could see a couple more warnings down in that area, just based on what I'm seeing on the radar. I mean, we basically are at the point where we don't have warning criteria, but we have special weather statement criteria, which is, you know, a strong storm, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds moving into York County. So if you're in York County, just be ready. You're going to have potentially some damaging winds in those areas moving in. And then further south and west, we have to keep an eye on this cell. There's a couple products I look at. I have them off camera on my laptop here, but it's a really cool product we call Prob Severe. It actually analyzes the radar, tells us probability of certain severe weather criteria, and this one has about a 25% chance of producing severe wind. Right now, this cell has a 55% chance of producing a tornado. So that's the cell right there that has my attention the most, because it's got that couplet showing up on the radar. And it looks like it might be intensifying. So the first warning we might see might be a tornado warning outside of our area, but right there, that is some pretty strong circulation right there. And this is moving just south of Greenville, Greenville area. There's 26 right in the middle of your screen here. That's Greer, Greenville, Spartanburg's up there. So this is traveling towards Lawrence area, Fountain Inn, Princeton. So again, as Brittany mentioned, a lot of folks have friends or family in this area. Some of you are actually probably watching us on the stream in this area. You need to be on guard. You could have a tornado warning pretty soon for that area, if not imminent. And then back into York County, we could see a severe thunderstorm warning. So this is kind of the focus right now. This is the upstate of South Carolina, south of the state line, into the upstate, and then probably eventually into the Midlands area of South Carolina shortly.
Yeah, Brad, a new scan just came in and it looks even brighter on the return.
Yeah.
Especially the green return.
Definitely an interesting storm. And one of the things we'll watch, and this will kind of show you what we're talking about. Remember, this front's moving this way. The southerly winds are feeding into it. So if it moves due east, it's gonna rotate a little bit, but if it takes a right turn, and what we mean by that, a turn to the south, it's going to churn into that inflow. That can actually cause it to spin up quicker. Anytime a cell moves, we call them a right turner, that turns into the inflow, that would produce helicity values would jump, basically meaning it would rotate quicker. So if that happens, you're gonna see that tornado warning there. But in York County, let's focus in on there for folks up there, because you're getting some pretty good wind and definitely some lightning now. So Rock Hill, York, Hickory Grove, McConnell's area, Newport, south side of Rock Hill towards the Chester County line, Leslie area, and then this is going to cross over the Catawba River. This is why if you're in the panhandle of Lancaster County, basically from Indian Land all the way down to Sun City, and then traveling all the way down to areas close to Lancaster as you go towards Highway 9, this is moving almost due east. So this is going to be very close, and then close to Richburg as well, in the northeastern part there of York, or of Chester County, excuse me, pretty close to the York County line. I'm surprised I haven't got a warning yet. I'm just like, we're trying to jump the gun here, but just got a report coming out of Cherokee County of that storm we were watching right here as it came out of Cherokee County. One tree down in the city of Gaffney, one power line down as well. So we know there's enough wind in this right now to cause some tree branches and power lines to come down. So that's the area that we've been watching, and now we just got a report from the emergency manager there in Cherokee County, South Carolina. I'm actually surprised we don't have a storm report yet popping in there.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised about a lot of these storms, especially the one in York County. I mean, good amount of heavy rain, lightning. We know the winds are gusty.
Mm-hmm.
Good reminder of why the stream is so lovely, so we can give you guys an early heads up, even when nothing technically severe is happening. It does look like back to the north as well, Brad, that some of the storms that were kind of redeveloping along the main cold front are at least starting to try to redevelop for the foothills as well. And I know you mentioned that's one of the spots that is seeing more sunshine come back in, so something we'll also have to watch as we go into the next few hours. You can see those cells right there. So we have one northern Burke County, then we have Caldwell County right here heading toward Lenore, and then a little bit back in here in Avery and Watauga, or Ashe and Watauga County. A little bit of light rain for Avery County, but nothing so far. This cell looks like it really kind of soared and gaining some strength as it moved into Wilkes County as well. So we'll have to watch that, as that's essentially the main cold front coming in. So 2 lines to watch. It's not a typical day where we can say, boom, clear from the severe once the cold front moves in.
Yeah, this line in particular. So we're starting to see some things evolve in this line, and it's, as you mentioned, kind of nice to see this in a stream. So you're seeing kind of like what we do behind the scenes in real time on the stream here, because this is how we would be watching the radar throughout the afternoon. And some of the things that Brittany and I are noticing, first of all, we're noticing the strong winds moving into York County, but there's a couple things I'm noticing in this whole line, and it's kind of hard to tell, but see that there's a little circulation right there? You see the red-green couplet? There's another one there, and it's not really strong, but there's another hint of one trying to develop in this area. So we call these semi-discrete cells sometimes. I'm going to zoom in on that area because it's not super strong, but right in this area, there's a little bit of hint of some rotation trying to develop. So what I'm seeing on the radar is as this pushes south and east, there's indications of these almost kind of discrete cells, one there, and then one further south. And they've got these shapes to them, kind of kidney bean shape, if you will. That's an indication on reflectivity, just from an appearance standpoint, that the storm has some rotation in it. Remember, storms can rotate all they want. A lot of storms, in fact, we get so many storms that rotate that never produce tornadoes. But the rotation itself tells you a couple of things. One, the storm's getting stronger because a rotating updraft in a thunderstorm is like a screw in the sky. If you think about when you churn a screw into wood, it actually drives it into the wood. When you get a rotating updraft, it drives air up into the sky. And so it takes this hot, humid air and takes it up higher into the sky where it's cold, and that creates severe weather because that warm, humid air doesn't like to be up there. So it creates downbursts, it creates a downdraft, and you get hail, you get downbursts. And if those updrafts and downdrafts can get close enough together, the interface of those two can actually cause a tornado to form. So those are the kind of indications we're looking at, and we've got 3 cells in the upstate that are showing that potential. And so when you look at these, you start seeing these, you're like, okay, we got to keep an eye on these because here we are, it's only 240. We're not even remotely close to peak heating. They're moving into an environment ahead of them where it's getting hotter, more humid. The thunderstorm fuel is building ahead of them. So they don't have anything to stop them from trying to get stronger. It's not like it's getting close to sunset and there's storms ahead of them and they're going to run out of steam. These actually have the potential, because they're happening earlier in the day, to get going and keep going. So the one cell that, I mean, it's a pretty impressive little cell. So there's that one there, Princeton. Look, there's another area right here. It's broad rotation, but it's there. And then you go up towards Pauline, that's the area I was watching. That's much broader. It doesn't look like much, but I can see a little hint of it there. And then down to the south, you see another area. So these little areas, these are ones we're going to have to watch, Brittany. Things are getting a little more intriguing with that line down in that area.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the semi-discrete cells, it's not always like, we're for sure going to see severe weather in this area, but it's signs that we as meteorologists look for to kind of see how the storm system itself is evolving. Because if you notice the pattern, let's say with the round number 2 in the mountains is starting to get stronger, that's an indication for you it's something to watch a little bit further south. So these are kind of the same thing. It does really look like the one, that cell, especially between Princeton and Duncan Township that's heading into Lawrence. I mean, every single radar return, Brad, it gets brighter and brighter.
Yeah.
But I am seeing the one that you're talking about, the GSP velocity as well, east of Pauline. So
yeah,
it's a little bit more tiny, but
yeah, it's a little hint. It's not nearly the kind that we're seeing down farther south, but there seems to be a little lineup of storms they're trying to get their act together. Yeah, it's just interesting to see these all trying to come together here as they push to the east. And this is the area that we want to watch in particular because as they push east, they potentially have the chance of not only being severe, but maybe if we're going to get an isolated tornado risk, it's going to be down in those areas. So let me widen this out a little bit. I'm going to try to clean up the radar here too, because we're getting a lot of ground clutter, we call it. So what I'm going to do is turn off some of the lowest levels because it's just false returns. So we're going to turn off the lower levels of green. Resave this. Okay. So the two areas they're watching. So this is the area that you just heard Brittany talking about. This is the Jonesville area. There's a little hint of some rotation there. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on reflectivity and go back and forth the velocity. So we'll turn on the velocity data. So right here, it doesn't look like much. I don't know why it loops every time I hit that, but yeah, there's a little broad rotation there. It doesn't look like much, so we're not overly concerned, but we got to keep an eye on that. We go down to the south. This one right here, man, this is like a classic looking supercell starting to develop right there. We turn on the velocity data and you'll see, yeah, that's rotating. You see the reds and greens there? So we're getting rotation in there. And then we go further south and we've got another one that's pretty broad, not as tight, but the one in between right here, that's the one that's got near Princeton, South Carolina. There's Lawrence, Gray Court. It's pretty broad. I mean, it's definitely going to have our attention for a while here. Storms will do, they're very cyclical in nature, so they'll cycle. And so those are the storms we're watching. So in Charlotte, it's just good old-fashioned rain. So if you're in Charlotte watching, don't worry, got some good old-fashioned rain. We're really focused on our York County, Chester County area, and then a little bit out towards Stanley County. I don't want to see any rain here today, but it's raining, unfortunately, in a spot that saw 3 to 5 inches of rain last night in about 2 hours from New London to Albemarle. Out towards Baden, we saw some flash flooding last night in that area, which was tremendous. I mean, it came down so quickly and caused some flash flooding there. Look at the velocity data locally. Just straight line here, so this is good. It's all straight line, but we did get a damage report out of this cell as it was over in Cherokee County, South Carolina, near Gaffney, a tree and a power line down. So in York, you're probably getting 50-mile-an-hour winds just looking at the velocity data there. Yeah, so they're just straight line, but we'll keep an eye on that further south for any potential for those to spin up even more.
Yeah, difference between strong storms versus severe storms, because we always talk about strong storm potential and, we can become a little bit more secure knowing that they could be severe closer to. It's because severe weather has that specific criteria. It's 58-mile-per-hour winds or higher, 1 inch or a quarter size hail or 1 inch of hail or a tornado. Those are kind of the 3 thresholds that we can get a severe thunderstorm warning, but we can have damage from 50, 45, even 40 miles an hour. So that's kind of the difference between when we say strong storms versus severe. Flooding, lightning, not considered when you talk about technical severe storms, and that's when those warnings are issued by the National Weather Service. I'm surprised that we're not seeing more chatter through NWS, the National Weather Service chat, Brad, on that one. So maybe they're busy trying to figure out what they're going to do with it.
Yeah, I think just monitoring that. 'Cause they've got multiple cells watching too. Every scan of the radar is trying to get a head start on these before they start producing any damage. Yeah, we got still got a little circulation in Jonesville, South Carolina, which is in the northern part of Union County, South Carolina, right near the Cherokee County line. So let me kind of show you the area I'm talking about. It's this area right here. So this is just west of York and Chester County. So right in here is this cell right here that I've been watching carefully. This cell definitely dumping some heavy rain. We're getting some tremendous amount of rainfall as well as some lightning and some gusty winds. But that cell behind it has a little bit of a hint of rotation. Again, remember, when we say rotation, people, it doesn't mean it's going to produce tornado. It just means we're watching the potential. These are kind of the precursors to severe weather. And sometimes it's not even tornadoes, it's straight line winds and hail. Brittany mentioned this, I mentioned it many times, 90% of our damage does not come from tornadoes. It comes from straight line wind damage usually. And so when we see rotation in a storm, it's a signal of a strong storm period, regardless of whether it produces a tornado or not. So the fact that we've got rotation here tells me we've got a vigorous updraft that's continuing. So yeah, we'll watch it for potential tornado production as well, but it's not always a tornado thing. And remember, tornadoes are dangerous, right? We want you to take it seriously, but tornadoes are small. They're on average a football field or width smaller. These storms are the size of the whole county, okay? So many more people will be impacted by the other impacts from the storm other than a tornado. That's why when there are tornado outbreaks and you see the devastating damage, you might notice one house is fine and the next one is completely destroyed, because that's how tiny they are. So they will produce very small paths, but these larger storms produce widespread damage because of how big the winds can spread out and the hail, obviously flash flooding, lightning, all those things. So that's why we focus on all those other impacts as well, because you're much more likely going to be impacted by one of those than you would be the tornado. But obviously tornado is the most life-threatening thing that we have in these storms that we got to be on guard for as well, and you got to be inside for them. The other thing I will caution you is the lightning is always a dangerous part of thunderstorms. There's no criteria for severe thunderstorm warnings and lightning. For instance, if a lightning storm comes and it's got a ton of lightning, a ton of thunder, doesn't mean it's severe, it just means it has a ton of lightning and thunder. So we don't have a criteria for number of strikes or duration or anything like that. But all thunderstorms have lightning, and all lightning is dangerous. So if you hear thunder roar, go indoors. And most people that get hit by lightning happens before and after the storm, because when it's raining, people seek shelter. They don't seek shelter when they hear thunder, and you should, because lightning can strike up to 20 miles from a storm, and the most people that get hit are before and after the storm because they go back outside or they continue activities because the rain has stopped, but the lightning is still too close. That's why if you're in the summertime, the summer pool season, you know how the 30-30 rule works. If there's lightning strike, everyone out of the pool, you wait 30 minutes until after the last lightning strike. Within 8 miles, in most cases, people just use the sound of thunder. If they hear thunder, you reset the clock. So that's the reason we use that. Also in your house, just be careful. Shower and tub, that's not an old wives' tale. Your mom or your grandma told you that. It's absolutely true. If you're in the shower and tub and lightning hits the water line, lightning can travel in through that way. And again, it doesn't matter what your pipes are made of. It's the water that conducts the electricity, not the pipe. So just be very careful. And anything connected to power lines or cable, anything wired to a pole or the ground or something outside, it can take electricity in your house. It can get you in there lightning-wise. Remember, it's how cable, satellite, electricity, water gets in your house. There's a conduit for it to get there. It's the same conduit that lightning can use to get into it as well. So just be very cautious. It's less of a threat, but just something to keep in mind, especially if there's a ton of lightning out there. And not to mention, it's always good to unplug computers or devices. You don't want to get zapped by that, because lightning strikes even nearby can cause damage to your TV or your computer equipment. There's that secondary line that we're watching moving through the Yadkin Valley and then back down towards the Unifor region. This is pushing through Lenore right now. That is the line that we're going to track for this all is clear from severe kind of thing. So once that line pushes through, I think you'll start to see the watch kicked out of the area. So here's a wider view just to show you where the storms are. 2 lines, one there, and they're pushing east, and so far, fingers crossed, no warnings. We're coming up at the top of the hour, 3 o'clock here shortly, and we're getting closer to peak heating. So if we're going to see things perk up here, it's going to be happening around Charlotte and really southeast. Charlotte, you're kind of out of the woods. I would say it's really our counties to our south and east, and then down into the Midlands, and then out east where we're going to be watching that severe risk, Brittany.
Yeah, further south, for sure, and south and east, because I'm also thinking about places like you mentioned before, 4:30 to 5:30 normally this time of year where we see our peak heating of the day. So I'm thinking even places across the upstate and toward the coast that could get into the mid to even upper 80s today, and then these storms move through. So if I could take the Storm Prediction Center's outlook right now and shift it south and southeast, I would, just because I think that high risk is almost a little bit too far north in Charlotte. Like if we could shift that high risk to probably southern Lancaster County, southern Chesterfield County, and toward the coast, I would trim back for sure. Which is just kind of how we watch these systems. We have to watch how things evolve. Just because we got upgraded doesn't necessarily mean that we are, we'll see strong opportunities for severe weather, but you might not start to notice some of these colors trimmed back. You might start to notice some of those watches get added for areas east of us, but also starting to see some of those potentially trimmed back across portions of the Piedmont. But still, I would encourage folks, you only have 3 hours left to kind of this time frame we've been giving you to still stay weather aware through at least 6 o'clock. And again, make sure that your friends and family members that live across the upstate in eastern South Carolina, especially down toward Myrtle Beach, Charleston, all of those spots, of course, are keeping a close eye on it as well. McClellanville, Georgetown, all of those places near the coast. And one good thing, Brad, though, those storms or showers, I guess, if they're not producing a lot of lightning, while there's some heavy rain, the winds are not that gusty. I've only seen 20, 25 miles an hour, so that's a good thing at least. The showers that are moving through Caldwell County right now, northern Burke. So as they're moving, they're producing more heavy rain, but they're not necessarily turning severe or strong really, really quickly, which is a good sign as well. Probably because I didn't see a ton of sunshine until about an hour or so ago, but probably tapping into that sun at least a little bit because they are starting to strengthen. But at least so far, nothing insanely strong pushing through at least our area, with the exception of those storms still in southern York County. Heavy rain, gusty winds, but again, nothing quite to severe criteria yet. But you're right, Charlotte looks great. Cabarrus County looks great, some light to moderate rain. Gaston County, some light rain there as well. Lincoln County, you're dry. Union County on the northern side, places like Monroe, Weddington, up toward Waxhaw, Matthews, Mint Hill, all those areas, just some light rain. But we do have some thunderstorms, it looks like, on the southern side there in southwestern Union County.
Yeah, I'm just kind of analyzing all those returns to the south. So I think in Charlotte, as you mentioned, I think there's no issues now around Charlotte at all. I don't even think that second line is going to mount to a whole lot as it's pushing in. Because it's just this first batch of rain is going to stabilize things. So it's really this first batch, and it is even as severe as it looks like on our future cast. So the real area of concern right now, if there's going to be a warning, is, and I'm going to grab my cursor here. We're going to go right in here. So this is kind of the area I'm watching, as I'll highlight. So this area here, Charlotte, it's raining, but I don't even think the second line's going to, because you got to remember, this is moving into an area that's going to be rain cooled. So that's not much going to happen here. Here, we've got some issues because these cells are becoming more discrete looking. They're not linear. Linear cells would be more of a straight line wind risk. These look like kind of developing into supercells, which produce a lot of severe weather. They can produce large hail, damaging winds, and obviously tornadoes. So we've got 2 of them right there, and a third looks like on the tail end of this line. So Chester County, we got to stay on guard here in Chester because those pushing in, and they're going through these cycles. So the radar, scans them every once in a while, and you see kind of a little rotation here and there. So 2 areas that we saw rotation, one near Lawrence, There's a broad rotation, and one up there, Woodruff area. This is 26, by the way. So you can kind of see those two cells in particular, they're pushing kind of due east. That's Union County and Carlisle area, and then Chester County. So Chester, those are areas we're going to watch. And look at the winds in York County. I mean, these are, they're gusty, but they're not severe. So as Brittany was mentioning, you know, severe criteria is going to be 58-mile-per-hour winds, and most of the winds we're seeing now are just below that. I mean, the highest I've seen is like 40, 45. So enough to bring down a branch here and there, blow some loose items around in your yard, but not necessarily produce severe weather. But they are pushing through fairly quickly. If we can get through this batch, we should be in pretty good shape for the rest of the evening. So I think this first batch moves through, we're going to be okay. The second batch, yeah, our northern counties up here, we'll watch north of 40 because there was a little bit of sun out, but you can see much more vigorous up here. This one kind of falling apart because it's moving into an area. It's great, but these two cells are primarily moving that way. I don't see this building back this way too much. So areas north of 40, so Love Valley, Olin, northern parts of Iredell County, those are the areas that could see that line. And then down to the south of Charlotte, South Carolina counties, that's the area we're going to watch for the next hour or so. Yeah, I'm not seeing much coming out of there. We'll see if we get a warning coming out of that one. Got a lot of what we call special weather statements coming out of these cells, moving into Union County, South Carolina. So these cells, all are the ones we're watching right now. Let's quickly kind of show you the future cast here. I want to see, as we get updates on the future cast, you know, if we're going to see the indications from the guidance that these are starting to weaken a little bit. So let's scroll down here. All right, that line moves through fairly quickly. There's 4 o'clock. And you can see that secondary line kind of falls apart, and really all the activity stays down there. So this is by 4 o'clock, so we're only an hour away from that. You could see by 5 o'clock, that line is falling apart and pushing through, and then we get to 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we're kind of done. So no matter where you are, this is going to be in and out fairly quickly, and we'll be almost completely done with this event moving through. I'm going to look at the Dallas camera real quickly here. Pull up our Dallas camera, and I'm going to walk over and move it so you can kind of see some clearing and also a lot of clouds there. So I'm going to come over to our controls so we can kind of move it around. Let's see. Gain control of it here. All right, so we're going to pan this a little bit further south. And we could see those cells down in York County a little bit better. All right, so that's kind of looking south-southwest a little bit, and you'll see it's a little bit delayed when I just moved it. So, well, one thing about the shot that's pretty cool is just you could see the clouds just racing, the low-level clouds. So this tells you we got some low-level flow still cruising in there. So the camera's moving, and off in the distance you see the darkness taking place. This is actually York County storm down there. That's where the storm is, and these are clouds in the foreground, not associated with that. So that is some fast-moving cloud, and this tells you the low-level flow, sometimes considered the low-level jet. We're racing. We're actually above this low-level cloud deck, so these clouds are below 2,000 feet. The tower this is on is 2,000 feet, but the camera's up at 1,450, so we're kind of below that level. And just to give you an idea on what we're looking at there, I'm actually going to show you a look at that cell. So we're basically up here in Dallas, looking down this area. So these clouds are going off here. We're looking down at this storm down in York County. That was the dark area off in the distance. Yeah, so still some pretty good wind in there. There's a little bit of rotation east of Jonesville and Lockhart area. This area right in here, a little bit of rotation right there. That's pushing in, but not much. The other areas we're watching, these two cells, coming out of the middle of the upstate, heading right towards Chester County. They don't look nearly as strong as they did earlier. So yeah, two little discrete cells, one there and one there. So these two, definitely got to watch these. If they churn a little to the right or to the south, that would be an indication too that they're getting a little bit stronger. And both of those, by the way, have what we call special weather statements with them. Not strong enough to be severe, but strong enough to produce a special weather statement saying, hey, these storms are pretty strong. They've got 40 to 45 mile per hour winds, and there could be a warning with them at any moment. So watching both of those cells carefully. But so far, so good. I think we're going to be in the clear for most of the evening once we get past 5, 6 o'clock, Brittany. I mean, it's looking pretty good right now.
I know. I have a friend who's getting married this weekend in Charleston who's messaging me about the weather there, and we're talking about how tonight rehearsal dinner probably not happening outside, but tomorrow and Sunday is going to be fantastic. So that's a positive thing that we can kind of look forward to here in the Carolinas this weekend. Is after it was a kind of a yucky, whatever word you want to use, start to the week. We had rain, of course. We had cloudy sky conditions. It was not a great Memorial Day. Then it essentially rained off and on all day on Tuesday. At least now we're looking ahead to better weather on the way. And Brad had mentioned this a few times, even when we started streaming around 1 o'clock. This is definitely not an all-night event. Once it's over, it's over. Won't impact your entirety of your evening. So that, of course, is just some positive things that we can look forward to, because if we can take Weather One full, you can actually see kind of how things are expected to progress. Here we are 3 o'clock right now. We know storms are moving through the area. As we get closer to 5 o'clock, again, we still have that chance to see some of those strong storms become severe, especially south and southeast of Charlotte. You can see the big swath of storm activity toward Rockingham in this futurecast over toward Raleigh. But then look at the rest of the evening, kind of a spitting, tiny little cells there, and then we're pretty much dry through tomorrow morning. So that, of course, is something to look forward to. So as we look at the severe weather risk officially from the Storm Prediction Center, I feel like we could notch everyone down a little bit. So if we're in a high risk for the Charlotte area, I think we could notch us down to a medium, and then low risk there for still some large hail and tornadoes. Some of this early rain, some cloud cover, especially north, really did help stabilize the atmosphere a bit. I still think we have to keep a close eye on those quick isolated areas. But as you mentioned earlier, even when you did your vlog, Brad, this was never going to be a situation where everybody saw rain and storms. It was always going to be isolated severe risks. So that means that, you know, me living in South End, I could see, you know, a storm at my house, but down in South Charlotte, Pineville area, someone else who's there doesn't necessarily mean they'll see it. And then, of course, a lot of the foothills, at least until the secondary line has moved through, actually been relatively dry for most of the day. So again, not everybody was expecting to see severe weather. I wouldn't say this is a bust. I think that it's definitely lower than expected, but seeing lower severe weather risk than expected is never necessarily a bad thing, especially on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, we still got a long ways to go for these areas south too, which is, you know, I think we're going to see something spin up quickly probably down in South Carolina between us and Columbia here between now and 6, just based on what the atmosphere is doing down in this area, because we still got full sunshine out between here and Columbia, and the Cape values from around Lancaster to Chesterfield down to Camden and Columbia are still climbing. So the potential for something down there is definitely where my focus is now. But even up north, you know, behind this first line, we'll have to keep an eye north of Interstate 40. I kind of circled this area because this is the area, I think, of highest severe weather risk for the rest of the evening. So we're going to highlight this, and that's the area we're talking about right there. So I think if we're going to see a severe storm, it's going to be there for sure. But there's one other area that I would not write off yet, and that's from Hickory to Taylorsville, Statesville, Turnersburg area. These cells, they don't look like much, but there is some instability and a little bit of fuel just ahead of them as well. I do not think this will back build, we call it, back down to the south because of the rain that fell down there. But this area right here is an area that I'm watching a little bit closer now, because just looking at some of the variables ahead of it, it definitely looks a little bit more ripe for some severe weather, possibly up there as well. So I would not be surprised to see a strong storm or two. But again, these are moving fairly quickly. I think the good news in all this stuff is not going to linger into the evening. We should be out of the woods completely. You see the severe thunderstorm warnings to the north with that line. So that's why got to kind of watch that little line as it develops up there. We're seeing some warnings up into Virginia, and not as many to the south so far. Yeah, we still got some STP values building, which is significant tornado parameters across some of these areas. So we're not out of the woods yet until we stabilize everything. And the reason we're not completely out of the woods yet is because it's only 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we still have a good 4 to 5 hours of peak heatings. So one of two things happen. These lines have got to push east, or we got to get past peak heating of the day, because that means the potential could still be there for a strong storm or two.
Yeah, I think that's like the thing, what I mentioned is it's too early to call a bust on those things, you know, because I think a lot of times it happens as we get closer to 4 o'clock and people are like, oh, I haven't seen anything, it's fine. While yes, the severe risk further north of Charlotte, as Brad mentioned, has gone down, it doesn't mean that it's over completely. We'll have to watch that secondary line that's moving through Hickory right now. Of course, severe thunderstorm warnings as well issued farther north, and you can actually see if we zoom out all across this line. So this is the cold front, all up and down this line heading into Virginia and West Virginia. All of those are severe thunderstorm warnings. Now the yellow shading means they're base severe thunderstorm warnings, so they're the classic 58 miles per hour quarter size hail, but at least it shows us that this line has a history of producing at least something severe criteria wise. So just something we have to continue to watch and keep in mind. Of course, in parts of Stanley County where we had some heavy rain, as you mentioned last night, Brad, that did cause some flash flooding and even some swift water rescues in Albemarle especially. We are unfortunately seeing more rain. It does not look like, again, it's going to last forever, but that's pretty much between Albemarle and New London was where those issues were yesterday. Some light rain in that area now, but we're going to start seeing heavy rain that will probably last, I'd say, over the next 30 minutes or so, and then most of that should be out of here. It doesn't mean we couldn't see some more rain with that back end storm system, but just be prepared, especially if you were in an area that saw really, really heavy rain yesterday. Brad mentioned that earlier about the swift water rescues, and I mean, it was no joke. That heavy rain, I mean, let's look at the estimated 24-hour totals, I mean, over this area. I'll plot some of these babies on, but this is, of course, radar estimates, but 7.5, 5 inches, 5.5. I mean, that rain yesterday for sure was no joke, and it happened really, really, really quickly, which of course is number one risk for flash flooding.
Yeah, that all fell in about a 2-hour time period, and there's not a lot of like gauges over there, but one of our Kokoros spotters over there reported about 4 inches of rain, so a pretty good estimate of the amount of rain that fell over in those areas. So that's the area where we're always a localized risk for flash flooding with slower storms. In fact, these storms look like they're slowing down a little bit, that they're just not moving very quickly in parts of York County. So we might get some minor flooding issues here as the line kind of comes together. But certainly heavy rain in Rock Hill, McConnell's, down to areas north of Richburg, and then all the way back towards Lauren, South Carolina, which those two storms in particular, we're going to move this out of the way. These two right here are the ones that we've been watching for rotation. They both have had rotation at times with them. And there's still some weak rotation in both of these cells. They're very weak though. There's nothing that's spinning up. That little cell had a little weak rotation. So again, nothing that says, hey, there's imminent tornado or anything like that. Just that there's those storms we're watching because they potentially could produce some severe weather. And there's definitely a lot of cloud to ground lightning. And then to the north, we'll watch these cells moving through area. I want to do a track on these because it's weird. We've got everything north of Charlotte and south of Charlotte. Not much in Charlotte, which is kind of, you know, sometimes that happens. This is the nature of scattered severe storms. They don't happen everywhere. Mentioned that in my vlog today. I think people, when they hear there's a risk for severe weather, they think there's going to be this like 1,000-mile wide tornado that moves across both states. That's not the way it works. These are isolated storms, and the localized nature of these means there's going to be pockets of severe weather and then other areas not seeing anything at all. And hopefully you're not in the severe weather. That's what you always want to wish for as these push to the east. But this is a timeline for that cluster between now and about 4:30. So this will push east fairly quickly. I put the track at 30 miles an hour. That's roughly the speed we've been seeing, but there's been some fluctuation further south. It looks like they're slowing down, and it might just be an optical illusion because sometimes the individual storms are moving to the east at 30 miles an hour, but sometimes the line is not moving that fast. So it's like the wider view will kind of erase that and show you the track here. So you can see, yeah, these things are moving quickly, but because this is tailing back, it looks like they're moving slower. This line is not building too much, but this is that secondary line that Brittany was talking about, that this is kind of the last. We'll be happy when this line moves through, but we can probably say completely clear from severe once this second line is gone, just because there is a small potential for that to develop. And well, I can't show it to you on air because we don't have access to my laptop here, but I can tell you that I'm looking at real-time, what we call mesoanalysis. So it's looking at real-time data on where we think STP values are fluctuating. And just to give you kind of a little idea, on the mesoanalysis page, roughly right in here, this whole area has a low STP value of about 0.5 to 1. That's not super high, but what STP stands for is significant tornado parameter. And essentially that means there is some ingredients for rotating storms or severe weather within that. So the fact that it cuts off right behind this line tells you that this line has to move through first before we know that all the ingredients, at least the ingredients, aren't there for more severe weather to develop. And that's why we're probably gonna have to wait for the clear from severe. That's why 6 o'clock to me seems like the safe bet for when things will be gone. This could be gone by 4 or 5, for sure by 4 maybe. Look at the clock, it's 3:15ish. So 4 or 5 o'clock, this will be out of our area, but this line could take till 6 o'clock to completely clear. We'll widen it out. So far, no warnings in our area, so I knew we'd get at least a watch or a warning, but the fact that we've had no warnings is kind of a shock to so far. It's the fact that we only had the watch and no warnings. Because, you know, typically if you get a watch, you expect to get a few warnings out of this. And so far we have not seen that happen, Brittany.
Yeah, nothing so far, which again is not necessarily a bad thing and doesn't mean we won't see anything for the rest of the day. But I feel like looking at the latest radar scans, Brad, what do you think about this little piece of, looks like some rotation there just outside of southern Chesterfield County? It looks like things have picked back up. This was the same one that you were watching that was near Jonesville, probably, what, 15 or so minutes ago.
Yeah.
That bright yellow return, just something I think that I just noticed. I was like, that piques my interest.
Yeah, there's definitely, that's a strong cell. That's the one we were watching earlier. That looks, yeah, that definitely looks like something we got to bear watching because there's definitely some wind in there. It's in a weird spot compared to the other storms too. But all those cells from western York and western Chester, they all potentially could be severe. We definitely have a lot more lightning in that area, and those all have some wind, up to 40-mile-per-hour winds at least. Got several special weather statements issued for all those, but no warnings yet.
I know it's like you look at National Weather Service chat for folks at home. That's kind of how we talk back and forth between the National Weather Service. We know what's going on, and it's like special weather statement, special weather statement, special weather statement, but nothing severe, at least not yet. Got to keep a close eye on it though.
Yeah, that cell is, looking at that now, I'm gonna keep an eye on both of those. There's three cells I would actually be concerned about for the next hour, and they're all kind of lined up from southern York County into Chester County. So let me widen this out just a little bit here. Okay, so it's these 3 cells right here. We got this one moving into York County, that one there, and then these 2. So they're kind of 3 separate cells. These are definitely discrete supercells. There's actually a little bit of a hook look to them, and these are showing rotation. But this cell right here as well has got a little bit of appendage on it, and you could see on the velocity data, as Brittany was pointing out, we've definitely got a burst of wind there. Right now that doesn't look very much like it's rotating too much, but there's definitely some strong wind coming out of that, and then a little bit of rotation back here. So keep an eye on that cell. That's right on the York-Chester County line. Moving into the southwest corner, Lockhart's right there. So yeah, there's definitely strong wind. If we look at the velocity data, I put the key right there. That shows 66 miles an hour, but that's just off the surface, just to give you an idea where that is. The radar beam hitting that, and I can actually give it a good estimate, is hitting that at about 1,800 feet. So that speed is close to 2,000 feet off the ground. So closer to the surface, it's probably a little bit weaker than that, but the fact that we're getting that wind speed up aloft is giving you a good indication of how strong those winds could be in there. Actually, I'm going to take a look at our camera. I'll pull up the Dallas camera, because the one thing about that cell, we are getting some clearing behind this first batch. We might be able to see the backside of that. So that's pretty ominous looking. That's Spencer Mountain in the foreground.
That is ominous.
Yeah, so that's that storm. We're kind of looking that direction. I was going to try to move the camera. It's a pretty far way to see, but I'm going to widen this out. See if we can't see the backside of this storm. Boy, it's hard to see. There's just so much cloud cover. Yeah, I don't think we're going to. So that's Crowder's Mountain off in the distance there. So that would roughly be the backside. I'm going to pause it right there. We'll stop it right there, see if we can't.
So those are the backside of the cell in York County.
Yeah, it's pretty far down there though, and we got a lot of cloud cover between here and there. So that's Spencer Mountain right there, if you're wondering. We're going to pan to the right here, and you'll see as I was talking, there's always a delay. That's Crowder's Mountain, Kings Pinnacle area there. So you know you're kind of looking towards southwestern Gaston County. We're going to pan it back here in a minute. And so this is that storm. It looks ominous, right? Dark clouds means you got rain, but the visibility is not great. I wanted to see the backside, because that's where, if there's going to be any kind of rotation, a wall cloud, anything like that, it's going to be on the backside of the storm. And unfortunately, the visibility is not great. And that we're still looking pretty far. Remember, we're looking from Gaston County almost down to Chester County. But on a good day, if this is a singular storm, we can sometimes see that in the area I'm talking about. So just to give you an idea, I'm going to put we'll use the measuring tool. So I'm trying to look 30 some miles away. So our camera's up here, and we're looking way down here, trying to see the backside of the storm. But all we see is this rain on the backside of the storm. So not enough clearing to take place to see the backside of that. But that's where our camera is that we just showed you, that we were looking down, kind of checking out. And the reason we're kind of keeping an eye on that is there's a little hint of some wind, maybe some weak rotation. Right there, moving into southwestern York County, northwestern Chester County. But again, not severe, just kind of an interesting storm to keep an eye on.
You're right, though, Brad. Those two cells, west and southwest, I don't know why I even had to say you're right, Brad. You're always right. But those definitely have the classic supercell shape for sure. Even this one just south of Jonesville, west of Union, South Carolina. I mean, it's like the classic tiny little hook that expands outward like a big V shape that you see in meteorology textbooks. So that's definitely one that as it heads into Chester County, I'm sure we'll continue to keep an eye on as well. Yeah, those two, and that's the area we're watching. So Chester County, if you're watching us there, that's definitely an area we want to keep an eye on. Brittany was talking about those are supercell thunderstorms. They've got probably rotating updrafts in them. They've got the shape of a supercell. They're discrete cells. There's all kinds of different, we call them storm modes. A linear storm mode is a whole line of storms, kind of like what you see along a cold front. Sometimes we get the squiggly squall line, the QLCS, where you get the same line, but it's got little S curves in it. Sometimes we get multi-cluster storms, which is a bunch of thunderstorms clustered around. That's kind of our summer type pattern. But then we get the supercells, which are these discrete kidney bean shape kind of to them. They sometimes have a hook on them. The tops will fan out. This is that typical thunderhead, kind of looks like a mushroom cloud or an anvil cloud if you see them by themselves. That's what those storms are. And so those are the ones you always watch. Big hailers, big wind, and sometimes tornadoes. But it's not always tornadoes. Like, remember the storm that hit York County last year? It was a supercell. No rotation at all, but 90-mile-per-hour wind and golf ball to baseball size hail. And that was wind-driven hail in that storm. So these can be very dangerous even without tornadoes in them. And so that's why we're watching those carefully. And they're on the back side, so they're kind of untouched. The other thing about discrete cells, supercells, they like to do their own thing. They don't like other storms around them because it disrupts their flow. There's inflow coming into them, the rear flanks arrive. If you disrupt the flow into it, it'll make that storm weaken. So these like to stay by themselves, and sometimes the farther they separate or they stay apart, the stronger they are. Strong cells now moving into York and Chester County. These are this line's been over a while. I'm surprised we have, if we're going to see flooding issues, I would think we'd have some flooding issues. Typical Rock Hill area,
off of Cherry Road there. I'm surprised we don't have flooding reports coming out of there because that seems to flood every time there's a thunderstorm moving through there.
Yeah, we really haven't had much in terms of severe weather reports at all. We had the one report, what was that, in Cherokee County, Brad?
Yeah, tree branch, or tree in the power line. That was out of Cherokee.
But even looking at the power outages for North Carolina, I mean, there's nothing that has us out of the blue scale that we normally see.
Yeah.
No significant impacts to the airport. Now, South Carolina, similar story, but Georgia, a little bit of a different story.
Yeah.
We, of course, saw severe weather there as well. They are seeing more than about 10 to 20,000 people without power right now. So fingers crossed that we don't get to that point, but it's just, these are just little things that we look at, of course, when it comes to a severe weather day. And it looks like the rain, because it's mostly just rain, at least, that fell near the airport, isn't impacting them at all.
Yeah, the lightning's gone away. They don't have, it looks like approaches from the north would be fine coming into Charlotte Douglas. So yeah, most of the delays at the airport that are related to weather, it's often not local weather, it's weather at other airports. And when you're an American hub, you know, you've got in the Northeast or Miami or somewhere else has weather, then you're gonna have issues here, even without a drop of rain here, just sunny skies. So, and then obviously there's a lot of FAA issues going on with outages and stuff that could have impacts. So these trickle-down effects happen quite a bit. But the fact that we haven't seen widespread impacts here is a good thing. And I think once we get through the evening, we're going to be in better shape after 6 o'clock. So I think the longer we go into the evening, the better things will get for everybody as we kind of clear all this mess out of here. I'm actually bringing up some airport data here just to see how the planes are flying around into Charlotte Douglas.
So I had FlightAware up when I mentioned that, and I think it looks like you're right. It looks like most are approaching either from the north, it looks like, or the southeast.
Yeah. Looks like, yeah, they're landing from the north right now, primarily. They're taking off southeast, but not many coming in that way. So yeah, once this first batch moves through, we're going to be kind of in the clear for a while until this second line, if it holds together. And it looks like it's falling apart a little bit, which is a good sign. So around Hickory, we're getting a storm that's going to move through. Let me see if I can bring up our high brighten camera. It was not working yesterday, but we'll see if we can't see the view looking east. It's probably going to be black. Yeah, there we go. It's black. Of course it is. So yeah, I was going to, hopefully we could see east of there, but there are some storms moving towards the Hickory area. So right around the Unifor region, the north side of the Unifor. So the Hickory side, Burke County side, Alexander County side, more so than I'd say Catawba and you know, Caldwell County more so than Burke County, to be honest with you. So kind of right there around Hickory. If you're wondering what the Unifor is, people always ask me, if you're not from the area, you don't know what that means. Unifor region is this region right here where the 4 counties, the union of the 4 counties, Alexander, Caldwell, Burke, and Catawba County. So it's kind of the greater Hickory area, often referred to the Unifor region. So that's the area that we're talking about. So that's where that shower is moving through right now, kind of moving through where those 4 counties all come together right there in the Hickory area. So these are pushing east towards Statesville. There's Eagles Mill, there's Mooresville, there's Lincolnton there. So nice break here in between these 2 lines. And we're not seeing it develop back to the southwest. So the fact that this is not back building tells me we're probably going to be safe down here. But until that moves through, I'm not going to write it off yet. I want to look at the visible imagery real quick just to see if we got any sunshine. Yeah,
there it goes.
So there's some sunshine. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Now that I say that, probably jinxed ourselves. But yeah, there's some sun on the back side of this. So we might see this line because this will allow for heating right here to develop. And in fact, we probably are seeing some of that on our Dallas camera. I'm gonna go over and move our Dallas camera again.
I was going to say, what you need to say is that it's going to be really, really, really bad. Yeah. So then you jinx yourself in the positive.
So I'm gonna move our Dallas camera back because I actually can see blue skies, Brittany.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
So yeah, we've got complete clearing behind that first line.
Well, at least some of the areas that actually had rainfall,
yeah,
are a little bit more stable than they probably
so
were.
Hopefully, so our camera's here and I moved the camera this way and I'll show you what it looks like and what we were talking about. Skies have cleared behind the first line and it'll take a second. So the camera's gonna move there's your delay. See, look at the blue skies. So things are clearing up and the sun is coming back out in many areas to the west. So this is kind of setting the stage. And because it's only 3:26, this would leave plenty of time for maybe some heating to take place, so that secondary line could redevelop and then push in. So that's what we'll have to watch, that secondary line possibly redeveloping. So that's the line we're talking about right there. This line right here possibly trying to develop as it moves in, because the sun is coming out in this area. So this is pushing south and east. It's going to be out of here. We should be good to go once that line moves through, and then we'll keep our eye on the second line. This should completely clear our area by 6 o'clock or so. So I am confident we're going to be clear for the late evening hours. So if you have dinner plans or late evening plans, you're looking good. Things are looking great. Yeah, still have some instability in there that we'll have to keep an eye on. So far, so good, though. I think we're going to be good to go here for a while. So coming up at 4 o'clock, we're going to flip over to WCNC on air, and we'll be tracking the rest of this as we go through the evening. But I think right now we can start breathing a little sigh of relief that we're going to be in the clear here, Brittany.
I am very excited for 6 o'clock because although things have been raining like crazy, we at least have not seen anything severe weather-wise so far. So I think there's a pretty good chance that we won't be a high risk like what we're under right now, more of a medium risk, but definitely with that sunshine coming back out, it's something to watch. I am happy though, Brad, that those areas that we were watching of a little bit of rotation that was in, what was that, southwestern York County, while it is still pretty broad, it hasn't resulted in anything so far other than just gusty winds, 40, 45 miles per hour. We've been doing this for about 2.5 hours and have yet to see anything severe as of yet. So that, of course, always positive news. Yeah. The only really thing that I feel like we're continuously watching that definitely will be strong, if not severe, when it gets here is those two little supercells you were talking about earlier. So Whitmer and Union, South Carolina, and those will be pushing into Chester. So we'll definitely have to watch those as well as they're rapidly approaching western Chester County. But at least so far, nothing severe yet. Really heavy rain, southern Monroe, down towards southern Union County, of course, pushing into Lancaster and Chesterfield County as well. But so far, nothing new to report.
Yeah.
Airport looks good. Power outages look good. Not seeing any new information on the other fronts as well.
Yeah, everything. I mean, there's really not much going on.
Based on your products, the ones that I know you have on your laptop, do you feel like the Kate values, the STP, has adjusted a lot over the past hour or so, or not really?
There's still a little bit in the clearing, but the first batch knocked the Kate values down to about 75. I'd say 750, so less than 1,000. So they definitely are going down. Yeah, for the most part, clearing out pretty good. Yeah, just a couple cells down in Chester and York that we're keeping an eye on, but for the most part, those aren't even that severe right now. Just strong storms. Lightning still in there, but not as strong. No rotation as earlier. The rotation has weakened a little bit. When you got two supercells like this, the southern one is the one I start focusing on, because if that does a right turn, then it could spin up quickly. And that would be the one I would watch, for the next hour or so as we get ready for 4 o'clock here. I'm gonna go up here, trying to build stuff for 4 while we're doing this.
No, we are. I believe that I'm going to go in the impact stream so you can have some time to do stuff for 4 o'clock. So
yeah, I'll try to build this out real quick. Let's get this, zoom in on this area right here that I'm talking about. So it's basically in Chester County is the primary concern. York, you're almost out of the woods. It's not this cell, but this cell actually is the one, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we'll kind of look at it. These 3 cells, there is some weak rotation there. This one has almost no rotation, but this is the one I'd watch, because if it does a right turn, then it could spin up, and that could pass just south of Chester County. But for the most part, it looks like it's going to stay just south. So these two, because they're all kind of going in this direction a little bit more so than due east. So these might miss Chester County altogether, but that's the last area. And then we'll watch, I mean, these areas just south and east in Lancaster, Chesterfield counties to see if we see anything that could spin up down in these areas.
Yeah, because Lancaster and Chesterfield basically haven't seen really anything of significance.
No storm. Yeah, they've had some sunshine, it looks like. Looking at the CAPE values down there, there's still over 1,000 CAPE, so still some fuel for those storms to feed off of. Yep, and so the front itself is just crossing the mountains now, so we could see that, and that's that secondary line that's coming in. It's just ahead of the front. The front itself, it looks like I'm analyzing it somewhere back in here, so this line is kind of falling apart. You see the warnings up in Virginia with that second line, but this is the front, and the winds are already shifting a little bit, so that's going to pretty much squash anything from developing there because they're coming more west. They're not being, there's no inflow coming into these to feed these, so that's the other good thing about those storms. They will likely fall apart quite a bit.
Yeah. Now, obviously, they have the chance of some kind of resurgence, of course, once they hit those areas of where the sunshine is back out. But you mentioned this before, that the CAPE values go down substantially as we enter the evening hours. So we know that once that secondary line moves through, we're pretty much good to go for the rest of this evening. And even heading into tomorrow, of course, you can see we're nice and clear of any of that mess, not really seeing any risk for either Saturday, or at least until Sunday afternoon for an isolated thunderstorm tomorrow. Heavy rain. Probably the biggest, at least, concern as of right now is some gusty winds. Again, in southern York County, Brad's mentioned that a few times. You can see southern Union County as well, but all of this mess is essentially moving east and southeast toward parts there of Lancaster County. So we'll actually put a little tracker on there so we can have a better idea. I'm not going to track out the rain. I'm going to track out more so the heavier pockets of rain, the thunderstorm. See if we can get that east-southeast. There we go. So Caldwell Crossroad on 349 to about 354, Pageland, Lancaster just before 4 o'clock. You can see Ruby, Tradesville just afterwards. So by the time we're starting the 4 o'clock newscast, a lot of those areas that haven't seen rain yet, especially in Lancaster County and northwestern Chesterfield County, will have at least started to see some of that rain as well. And those are the spots, of course, we'll be watching, because those will be the spots that haven't quite tapped in to some of that rainfall yet. They haven't really tapped into that instability caused by all the sunshine. And these are all, of course, important things that we look at when it comes to severe weather forecasting. How much sunshine is there? How much instability? You know, the timing of when all of that is going to move in, things of that nature. And Brad just showed you guys this a second ago, but you can very clearly see that this particular line that's northeast of Mount Airy has the history of producing severe thunderstorms. Now, these are yellow, so they're a base severe thunderstorm, which means essentially you're level 1 out of 3. So gusty winds, about 60 or so miles per hour, quarter-sized hail, but no tornado tag. So at least as of now, even those north heading into Virginia and West Virginia aren't quite causing anything crazy. Again, the Charlotte Metro mostly saw rain when some of that mess moved through earlier. Still seeing some rain there in Albemarle, parts of Stanley County. But I would say that if you're in Chester County right now, southern York County, and into southern Union County, those are the spots right now that are more so in the bullseye when it comes to some heavy rain. A little bit of a bowing segment in some of those storms in southern Union County, which essentially is just setting us up for more gusty winds. As we turn on the velocity data, we can kind of look at how gusty those winds are. So about 35, 30 miles an hour, 41. So again, these are strong storms, but they're not severe storms. So that again is the criteria difference. When you see some of these red returns here, that's about 40 to 45 miles an hour of wind. So certainly something that can cause some minor damage, but not something that can cause significant damage to the same level of a severe thunderstorm warning. But the reason why, of course, we keep such a close eye on these situations is because of the fact that gusty winds in excess of 60 miles an hour, which is more so severe thunderstorm criteria, that of course can cause more notable damage. 90% again of our wind damage in the Carolinas comes from severe thunderstorm warnings caused by wind. These were those 2 supercells. This is velocity data that Brad was tracking a little bit ago. This was the one near Whitmer that he was watching a little bit closer, but of course you can still see the supercell, a little bit of spin trying to push up there just south of Union, South Carolina. So those are those cells that kind of have that classic look that aren't quite into Chester County yet, but at least the one near Union, South Carolina is starting to push in. At least the eastern side of that storm is pushing into Chester County, but it does look like the Whitmer one, at least as of right now, is going to stay just a little bit south and southeast of Chester. The reason why Brad was talking about the Whitmer one being one of more concern is because if it took any kind of gear off toward the right, essentially it would encounter all of that warm southwesterly wind that's coming in there, and that of course can cause rotation or any kind of rotation spin up a little bit faster. Oh, look at that, Brad. We finally have that cell that was south of us in the upstate finally has a severe thunderstorm warning associated with it. We were talking about that for quite some time, wondering when that was going to happen. So, checking for updates here. We did get a report, sunny and blue skies now in Gastonia, which of course means that there's a chance that we could see a resurgence of strong storms there. No new severe thunderstorm warnings or anything like that as of yet, but more special weather statement, which are again essentially somewhere between a severe thunderstorm warning and nothing. So it's saying that strong storms are there, but they're not quite to severe criteria. So typically when you see a special weather statement, we're looking at about 40 to 45, even sometimes 50 miles an hour when it comes to those storms. Now, if you are wondering how the rest of your evening is going to shape up, we can take a look at our futurecast model there. Here's essentially 3 and 4 o'clock where we are right now. Again, you can see that secondary line trying to pull up some of those isolated storms on the back end. But I really do think that once we get past 6, 7 o'clock, we are pretty much dry for the rest of this evening, and that really is when also we see the Cape, the thunderstorm fuel, start to go down as well. So here's the Cape now, but you can quickly see it dwindling. Brad mentioned this earlier, but Cape stands for convective available potential energy. And so essentially the Cape values are showing how much storm fuel, how much energy do we have in order for that to happen. So again, we're still watching this risk for some strong to severe thunderstorms here in the Charlotte area. Lesser chance if you're in the metro, south and southeast still have a higher risk at this point. Again, you can see the storms moving in through the upstate right now, the severe thunderstorm warning that's just out of our viewing area. But if you have friends or family, again, in coastal Carolina, so over toward Charleston, McClellanville, Myrtle Beach, even Savannah, Georgia could see some of that mess as well. Just make sure that they know that storms are coming, and at least for them probably will be arriving probably between about 6 and 8 p.m. for those areas along the immediate coast, because at least for us, this storm system is moving out. We're kind of rocking and rolling, pushing through very, very, very quickly. Severe thunderstorm warnings are still up for those same cells along the same line up in Virginia as we approach the 4 o'clock hour in about 22 minutes. If you are driving this evening, I would say keep a close eye on the forecast. Make sure that you are holding the wheel at 10 and 2 or 9 and 3 or whatever they teach now. I'm not an expert on exactly where the steering wheel hands should be, but make sure you have a good grasp on that. Make sure you're taking it easy if you do get caught in one of these downpours, as we will still be watching that resurgence of a few more isolated storms, again, on the back end of the metro. Still under technically a high risk for severe storms if you're south and southeast of the Charlotte area. Again, I think this is a little bit high for us. When we get high risk, you probably would anticipate a little bit more activity than what we've had so far today, but just know it's not over quite yet and still something that we need to watch really closely. But highest risk still remains opportunity for gusty winds from now again until about 6 o'clock. Could see some isolated hail more than 1/4 of an inch, and yes, a quick spin up is not out of the question, but at least as of now we are not seeing any severe thunderstorm warnings so far. Yep, organization happening, yeah, with that cell there down in the upstate, but again, nothing else new. Just share as of now. We're just watching things closely, trying to get everything ready for the 4 o'clock newscast. So in a few minutes, we'll come off at least out of the studio, and I'll go back in the impact stream with Nick Sturdivant, and we'll talk a little bit more about the storms before we get into the 4 o'clock newscast. But at least as of now, I mean, things are looking okay. I wouldn't say they're great since we're still tracking storms, but at least they're looking okay as of now.
Yeah, for the most part, I mean, I think we're not going to see any warnings. The rate this is going, everything's kind of going around us, and unless something pops here in the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to probably be okay for the rest of the evening. So this is the way you want to see it, kind of move through quickly. We'll watch this broken line back here, but all in all, kind of a really tame setup here. as the storms have kind of bypassed us, we've seen the warnings kind of north and south, and then everything kind of splitting around Charlotte. I mean, not that we didn't see storms, but the severe risk moving around us. Definitely up here, more of a potential because of the low pressure system, or more of a potential down to the south because there's more heat and humidity. In between, kind of we're in between having the energy and the fuel come together. So far, so good, and that's the way you want to see it. So just good old-fashioned thunderstorms moving through the area right now, which is good. Get them in and out of here. We'll be done for the evening. Get a chance for your lawn to dry out so you can mow it this weekend. Quick view of our Dallas cam. I pushed it back to the south. We're seeing the storms down to the south move away. Clearing taking place back to the backside. So we're beginning to dry everything out, and this should allow for us to be completely clear here shortly. In many areas, you will see the sun coming back out, which is good news because I don't think that's going to allow for instability to build too much more and should allow for the evening to be pretty nice. Still have a couple isolated cells to the north that we're watching, but I don't see those getting severe at all right now. So there's just no indications of anything strong at this moment. Doesn't mean we couldn't see it perk up, but as of this moment, 3:42 p.m., a couple isolated storms. These might be the next things we watch to see where these go. They are back building a little bit back into Burke County now. That was something we didn't see before. Those are showing some signs of lightning at least. Not much wind or anything else like that, but definitely have a little bit of an updraft starting to get going in both of those cells. There is a little bit of sunshine out in this area, so they might be able to perk up a little bit here as they get closer to Charlotte.
Brad, what are your thoughts on the weak rotation that's south of Van Wyck? Did you see this?
Yeah.
I know sometimes when we're so far away from the radar site,
It's hard, yeah, let's say it's so far from the radar. It's definitely some wind in there. It's the same cell we saw earlier. But
it's not really associated, it looks like, with any of those hooks or anything.
No.
It looks like it could just be embedded gusty winds, but
yeah,
I just wanted to know your thoughts.
It doesn't look too ominous based on where it's at.
That's one of the things that we do too, y'all, at home. Looking at when we see some kind of what looks like rotation is kind of what it also looks like on the regular radar products. Because if you see rotation that's right in line with what looks like a hook echo, you know, okay, here we are.
Yeah. You got to look at multiple products. So a lot of times at home, a lot of people, everyone has radar on their phone, but they look at only one product. There are 15 to 20 products that the radar supplies you. Everyone just looks at reflectivity, which is where the bright colors are. We have the ability to look at velocity data from multiple radars, correlation coefficient, other properties that show us, hey, where are they? And sometimes you have to look at all these products together, and they have to line up to show where there's rotation. And there's all kinds of errors in the radar, side lobe contamination, things like that. So you got to make sure they're in the right spot. But this area is something to interest. This is the strongest part of the storm. Near Richburg, there's a little couplet. That one actually looks a little bit more potent to me than what we're seeing over here. This looks like a little bit of a radar anomaly. In my opinion, this looks like maybe more something that we'll keep an eye on. So, and this is the area that we're talking about. If we're going to see something pop up, Lancaster, Chesterfield County areas, because this is where the sun has been out for most of the day and that has been untouched by storms. But when you look at this line, it's kind of embedded in a line. So that's something that tells me, we'll see. There's maybe a little hint of something there. But all in all, it's just something to keep an eye on both of those areas, for sure. We're seeing a lot of special weather statements issued for these, more so than severe thunderstorm warnings. So that's always a good idea to keep an eye on these until they pass our area south and east. So again, we're kind of whittling down the areas we're watching for severe weather. It's now kind of southern Lancaster County, southern Union, Anson, Richmond, and Chesterfield counties. Highway 9 corridor is kind of our next area that we'll be watching through 4 o'clock.
Brad, just getting word from the National Weather Service in Columbia, they are going to issue a tornado warning for Lancaster County.
So they're going to go ahead and pull it on that one, yeah.
Just a few seconds ago.
So we'll see that one pop up here momentarily. Yeah, absolutely, guys.
All right, y'all, so we are going to continue streaming, of course, on WCNC Plus, but we're also going to go on linear TV as well. So multiple ways to get warnings, of course, as this continues throughout the rest of this evening. Again, on air, online, friends, family, wireless emergency alerts.
All right, we'll see you on air here in a second, guys. Good afternoon, everyone. We're joining you on the air right now. We have a new tornado warning that's just being issued. It's not popping in our system yet, but this is for Lancaster County. We've got a new tornado that is forming in the Panhandle area of Lancaster County. So this is area just around Lancaster, Fort Lawn, Lansford area. So this is kind of the area we're watching. We had some rotation show up here on the radar, and I'm going to kind of pull it up here so you can see. We've got some rotation here and here, but it looks like this one might be the one that's going to prompt the warning based on what we're seeing. Not sure why these aren't populated. There we go. It just popped up as we're talking. So we'll kind of show you that warning right now. There's the warning. So you can kind of see it takes up that area. And it's a weird warning, I know. Union County should probably be in this warning as well, but this is for the Panhandle of Lancaster County and areas of north. So if you're in Lancaster, you're technically not in the warning. It's actually just to your north. So your phone should be going off in these areas south of Indian Land. So this is south of Indian Land, by the way, down towards areas closer to Lancaster, but not quite into Lancaster, and then off to the east as you go towards Tradesville and Pageland. But southern Union County, I would be on guard for this as well. This could likely clip areas just to the north of the county line. So this is a tornado warning till 4:15, and the area we've been watching is a little circulation here, but there's actually two circulations embedded in here. There's one right there, but there's also one here. I think they're warning for this one, but I would also watch this one back in here. So this is moving basically right along the state line, but because it's on the line, you probably could see this warning extended into Union County if GSP issues this as well. So again, remember, this is not for the whole county. This is just for the area in the polygon. So when we see this, it's just this northern section of Union County from around Van Wyck and then into the extreme northwest corner of Chesterfield County. So remember, warnings aren't for whole counties, they're for parts of county. So we widen this out, you can see that most of the county south and north towards Indian Land, you're not in the warning. And most of Chesterfield County, you're not in the warning. It's just this area right here. So let's put a storm track on the circulation. I have the movement to the east right now. I think the movement I have is at 30 miles per hour. But I want to double check that we've got that moving through at the right speed. I'm going to draw this right from the circulation. We're going to push it out due east. And so this is the track. So if you're in the path of this storm, that includes the areas around Lancaster, the north side of town, 358, coming up here momentarily. And again, plus or minus about 5 to 10 minutes. Do not read exactly into these times. Give yourself plenty of time. And then moving through the northern part of Lancaster County and eventually into the northwest corner of Chesterfield County, which is around Pageland and Jefferson area. So those areas definitely long range. You're going to want to be on guard for that potential. Let's go back to velocity data. I'm going to go back to the circulation and see where it is. So the area of circulation, I'm going to zoom in. It's right there on the Union-Lancaster County line. This is our circulation right here. So there's jars to the north. So this is actually going to clip the southern section of Union County. So this is the Union County corner. This is areas in the Panhandle, Van Wyck, areas just south of there, and then Lancaster's to the south. So there's the circulation. Just got a radar update. So again, the circulation was here a second ago. It's moving here. So new cut areas off towards the east, that's where it's heading in the next minute or so. Just trying to see if we get any. This is kind of an area, it's kind of a no man's land between a couple counties. And the reason you're seeing the weird polygon for the county, this is the Columbia Forecast Office in Lancaster and Chesterfield. This is GSP, Greenville-Spartanburg office. So Trust me, the tornado is not stopping at the county line. I would go ahead and just treat the southern section of Union County like you're in the warning as well. So we'll draw the line. This is where the warning is, basically right there. So that's going to include the very southern part of Union County as well. And that storm is moving off in this direction at about 30 miles per hour. So again, tornado warning till 4:15. That's not very long warning because this spun up fairly quickly. It could spin down just as quickly. One of the things I want to look at is the Columbia Doppler radar velocity. See if we have any circulation right there. Not as strong on their radar as we saw with some of the other signatures, but we'll look at the velocity data out of Greenville, Spartanburg, as well as kind of a no man's land of radars too, honestly, in this area. This is the Charlotte Douglas FAA radar, kind of shows the best circulation right there, just south of the county line. So not seeing any reports of this on the ground, no confirmation. This is a Doppler radar indicated tornado right now, pushing off to the east.
Just, GSP does not plan on issuing anything for Southern Union Associated.
Yeah, but we want you to go ahead, and we're not going to worry about what they're saying. We're going to worry about what people are dealing with right here. This is going to be the southern section of Union County. We want you to treat this like a tornado warning right now, as I mentioned. So again, this is going to be pushing right along the county line. And again, if you're in this area, just best to go ahead, seek shelter. Middle of your house, interior room, away from those outside walls and windows. You want to put as many walls between you and the outside. What you're trying to do is protect yourself from flying debris if there is a tornado in this storm. And again, the best mode you could do is just get to that bathroom, maybe a closet, maybe it's just a hallway, whatever's in the interior part of your house. So let me show you those safety tips here. Again, if your house, you want to get into that room, that green room right there, in between as many walls between the outside, no windows if possible. That would be ideal, to have no windows, because that, the debris is flying around. That's the biggest concern. Debris is going to fly around, break the window, then come right at you. So the thing that hurts people in tornadoes, it's not the wind, it's what the wind picks up and throws at you. So in those cases, we want you to be in that interior room, away from those outside walls, on the lowest floor, because every roof and ceiling above your head is another wall and a layer of protection. So again, tornado warning for extreme northern Lancaster County, south of Indian Land. This is not including Indian Land. This is a very small part of Lancaster County and a very small part of Chesterfield County. If you're in these counties and your phone isn't going off, it shouldn't be going off unless you live in this purple polygon, okay? So that's the thing about the wireless emergency alerts. If you're down here, you should not be getting a warning. If you're up here, you should not be getting a warning. If you're here, you're not. It's only people in here that we should get the warning. Now, again, this is based on cell phone towers, so depending where you are, your phone might be going off. You might be getting a cell tower that's in the warning area. But again, this is the circulation we're watching right there. That new cut is right there. This is the area. So the greens are winds going this way. These are winds going this way. So we've got circulation right there. I'm going to draw it on the map. There's our circulation spinning right there, and it's moving almost due east at about 30 miles per hour. I have not seen an actual wind speed on that, which is interesting. It seems like there's a product dissemination issue going on with the Weather Service as well. Some of their products aren't coming out correctly. Because
they have actually been dealing with that for a few hours, Brad. They thought it was fixed, but it does not look like it is.
Yeah, because what we're talking about is, look, it took us a while to get the warning to pop up in our system. I have multiple other software on my laptop, and none of them are showing the tornado warning, which is kind of interesting. So the good news is we have some redundancy here, but you could see that warning up for extreme northern Lancaster County. Brittany Van Voorhees is over in the Weather Center. Brittany, you haven't seen anything of any confirmation or damage reports, have you, in that area?
No confirmation, no damage reports. That was the one that we were watching earlier that we talked about. It does look like the population data, Brad, that came into for IMWS has east at 35 miles an hour. 35, okay, yeah. That's what I was double checking, because I want to make sure the speed was what we're going to calculate. So what we're going to do is we're going to replot the track here.
And what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch it over to the velocity data because it's just easier to track it with where the circulation is. And what we're doing is we're tracking the circulation only. We're going to plot this at 35 miles per hour. Now again, when you see these numbers, remember this is an approximation. We don't want you to take these to the exact second or minute. Give yourself a good 5-10 minutes plus or minus if you're in the path of this storm. So that means, 355 to 405, a new cut. Okay, you want to be in that window. And once it passes you, we'll let you know when it's all clear. So the next big towns in the way, obviously new cut, it's almost there. Tradesville, Dudley, Crowburg, Pageland, and Jefferson. And that's moving into the northwest section of Chesterfield County. So that's where this rotation at least is going. And I say rotation because we have no confirmation of this on the ground. This is just a radar indicated tornado, meaning there's indications that a tornado may be forming. Not seeing any indications of it on the ground. And I'm going to look at a couple other things for, like velocity is one thing we look at, but one of the other things we can look at is called correlation coefficient. It's a product that will give us an idea if there's any debris showing up in that cell. I'm actually going to try to pull that up right now as I'm talking to you. We were streaming all afternoon tracking this storm, so we had a good idea that there would probably be 1 or 2 warnings and maybe even an isolated tornado risk, but we're going to look at the correlation coefficient here real quickly. It'll take a second to populate.
We did have somebody ask in the chat, Brad, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question. Can the data outages, can they sometimes impact the WEAs, the wireless emergency alerts?
That's a good question. I'm actually going to see if a WEA was issued. So what we're looking at here is a product we call correlation coefficient, and I'm looking for lower values of red, so like yellows and oranges. We're not seeing that. That would be indication of debris. So what this product is telling us, when everything's the same shape, like if there's just raindrops, they're all similar in shape. But if you have, let's say, a 2x4 next to a shingle, those aren't the same shape. The correlation coefficient between the two is big. And so you would see that show up on here, and that means debris. You have different size objects next to each other. Raindrops are all basically the same size. So that's an indication that we don't have debris at least being lofted on the radar, which would be a radar indicated confirmed tornado. So you mentioned that, Brittany. I'm actually kind of curious if one did get issued because this is a pretty widespread outage, it looks like, based on all the other products I'm seeing.
It looks like it's a national outage, at least from what I've seen so far in National Weather Service chat. There was an issue earlier, it looked like, with their discussions being posted to the website, and then it started with when they issued the warning. The reason why I think it came in so late was that it wasn't populating on Columbia's website.
Yeah, so there was a WEA issued, so it did go out, thank goodness.
That's great.
So if you're not, what we're talking about is there is a major data issue going on with the Weather Service and NOAA, and some of the products aren't being disseminated to different partners, and ours was a little delayed coming in. We got it, but I have 3 other products that I'm not even seeing the warning on. So a wireless emergency alert is that really loud, piercing noise when your phone goes off. This is something the FCC sends out, as well as your cell phone carrier. It would come out for this tornado warning if you live within this polygon, or your cell phone is hitting a tower, a cell phone tower that is inside of this polygon. So people's phones in this general area could be going off, and that was issued correctly because I'm looking at the product right now. It was issued at 3:46, so it came out on time. Which is a good sign. So they just updated the warning. They kind of took out the backside. So this is all north of Lancaster. So Highway 9 right here runs over into Chesterfield County. That's basically where this storm is tracking, essentially along Highway 9. South Carolina 200 is like right there, and the circulation's east of there. So this is heading basically due east towards South Carolina 522. It's going to head towards the Lancaster-Chesterfield County line, and then it's going to get over close to Pageland. It's kind of heading right towards Pageland, home to the Watermelon Festival there. So this is where the next place it would be heading, right in that general direction, right through Tradesville. So pretty rural area, which is a good thing because there's not as many people in the way of this, but also harder to find shelter and also harder to get information about this storm as it moves in that direction.
And we do want folks to know that we are officially in 4 o'clock, which means we are officially in the 4 o'clock newscast. We, of course, will stay live talking about weather until the tornado warning is over, or we feel like the threat is over. As of right now, though, Brad, we know it only goes until 4:15. Just wanted to give people an idea on the time.
Yeah, so we just want to welcome you if you're just tuning into the 4 o'clock news, because we normally would reset there. So what's interesting, Brittany, is the warning was issued for this circulation, but as I mentioned, there was another weak circulation back here. So this one's northwest of Lancaster. So this whole area, just to be safe, let's just be very cautious for the sake of safety. Everybody stay in that safety spot until this storm completely passes you, because there could be a second circulation developing on the backside. But again, this is primarily for northern Lancaster County and extreme southern Union County. You're not technically in it, but I want you to treat it just the same. So just extreme southern Union County, and then northwest, that's a very small section of Chesterfield County. So again, I know our bottom of our screen says whole counties. It's not issued for the whole county. It's just for this part of the county. So if you're to the south, you do not have to seek shelter right now in Lancaster South or areas down towards Kershaw, those areas, you're okay. And same goes for like Patrick and McBee and Chesterfield right now, because you're outside of the warning. It's really this area right here that we're talking about primarily. I'm trying to check to see if we've got any pictures or video coming in from that area, and so far nothing in that area that would indicate tornado. You know what I want to do is take our tower cam and kind of move it down that way. I'm going to take our Dallas cam, Brittany, and see if I can shift it towards that storm a little more, because we moved it back to the east a little bit.
Yeah, we know that would be quite a feat if we can get all the way there, but still something that we want.
Trying to at least see the back side of it so we can move it over.
Yes, if you are wondering why Brad wants to see the backside, normally that's where the heaviest rain, when you get hail, and kind of where those spin-ups typically happen are on the backside. So sometimes if you can see it visually, you can tell the difference between tornado, funnel cloud, or nothing at all.
So yeah, this storm, just to put in perspective, here's Charlotte, here's the storm. Our tower cam is way up here, so I'm going to show you just a quick view of it just to show you. I moved the camera aimed towards that way to see the backside of the storm, and all we can see is the backside and really dark clouds. If the visibility was good, you might be able to see a lowering, or what we call the wall cloud on the backside. Right now, we just don't see that from this distance, but that's the storm. It just moved through York County and is moving into Lancaster County, southern Union County, as well as northwest section. So I'll give you more perspective. That's where the warning is. There's Charlotte, there's all of Chesterfield. So if you're south of the county, you're okay. It's really right along the state line. This is hugging the North and South Carolina border right now. So if you're in areas of southern Union County, I want you to treat this almost like a warning as well, right near the county line, and then also probably southern Anson County, because this looks like it's moving right along Highway 9 from Lancaster into Chesterfield counties. Pageland would be the next area, and Tradesville area. So let's go back to the velocity data. Why was the warning issued? Because there was indication of rotation. Now, what's interesting, the rotation was roughly right here, but there's actually another circulation back on this side. So see if we have maybe a secondary circulation. Both of these don't look very strong, to be honest with you, from a radar perspective. They look pretty broad and weak, but this is going to travel north. There's Highway 9 right there. So this is traveling just north, and that's the state line. That's the Union Lancaster County line. And then eventually that county line right there is Chesterfield County. So that's the area we're talking about, moving almost due east at 35 miles per hour. Widen this out a little bit and you can see that's the area we're talking about. So I'll pause it right there. We'll do an updated storm track on this. Just not a lot of information coming out of this cell, to be honest with you. I wish we had more to share with you, and the radar is not really showing anything that jumps off to me that says it's super strong. So I think if anything, this might just be some mid-level rotation right now. But if you're in the path of this storm, probably the best course of action is just to be cautious. Go ahead, stay in the interior room, get away from the outside walls and windows until the storm passes, just to be on the safe side. But there's nothing on the radar that says this is an imminent, really strong tornado. There's no debris being lofted right now, and we've got no confirmation. So this is all radar indicated rotation for this warning right now.
And of course, if you get photos and videos and you can safely take them and send them to us, we can not only share them with our viewers, of course, right here on air and online and on WCNC Plus, but it's also a good tool for the National Weather Service to use. They can use it later on as forecast verification, or even just to get better going into time. So that would be very helpful.
Brittany, what's ironic, that secondary circulation now looks like the much stronger circulation.
Yeah, the one just north of Lancaster.
Yeah, so this is taken over. This is the one that came out of Chester County. So this, to me, is probably the area I would be most concerned about right now. We'll zoom in carefully. So this is on the north side. There's the city of Lancaster. This is going south. This is Highway 9. Going down to, I think, 151 down there. This is the shortcut if you ever taken that way down to Myrtle Beach. We're heading down to 501. All these areas is 521 coming down here, so this is just north of town as you're getting into Lancaster. So there's that big churn off right here. I think there's a Bojangles right there as you're passing down, and then you get on the highway going into Lancaster. So this is traveling just north of town there. So this is going to be traveling basically due east. Just north of Lancaster, but there's a lot of traffic on 521 because people are going back and forth to Charlotte, heading up to Ballantyne, Indian Land area, Sun City to the north. So it's now shifted east. So it's just crossed over 521. So it's now east of 521, shifting off to the east, and then it's heading towards Newcut. So now this is the second circulation. The first circulation, which the warning prompted, that doesn't look like anything now. It looks like the second circulation is actually kind of taken over.
And it looks like it's going in very similar areas that was impacted that you mentioned, Newcut, Tradesville, places like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they replace this maybe with a new warning.
Yeah, and like shift it a little further south maybe, because yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, that this part now, because this initial warning came for this part, but there's actually a little appendage, almost like a hook shape to this, and we're getting some strong reflectivity and velocity signatures that this could be rotating in that area.
Best case scenario, nothing else happened with the first one, and they got an early heads up that something was happening.
I mean, that's the good thing.
Yeah, if you're in the same spots that Brad talked about before, I would just stay there.
Yeah, that's why I said let's wait till this warning's completely done before we get out of our safe place, because that rotation is actually tracking the same area. Actually, this one tracked a little further south. The first one was closer to Union County, North Carolina border. This one's a little closer to Lancaster, so much closer to Highway 9, which is right there. So this one's going to stay north of Highway 9, parallel the highway again. And I'll kind of widen this out. And I'm going to put a track on this one just to give you a heads up. We're going to do the circulation. Now remember, the radar is showing where the circulation was. It was there a moment ago. It's likely already here. So here's the next path of this storm. It's moving towards Beaufort and Tradesville. So those would be the next areas. Probably going to pass pretty close to Newcut, but maybe just to the south. I would go ahead and seek shelter anyways in this exact same location. Because if you're already in your safe spot, you don't have to go anywhere. You're going to be there already. So those are the areas that we're talking about, basically right along and north of Highway 9 in Lancaster County. Now, will it make it all the way to Chesterfield? Hard to say. The first circulation kind of fell apart before it got into Chesterfield, but the northwest corner of Chesterfield County is an area we're going to watch as well. So this is traveling through some pretty rural areas. Lloyd 5 Points area, it's going to travel through there and then stay just north of Highway 9 between basically Unity and basically Beaufort area. It's going to stay north, travel across 522, and then head over there towards Tradesville. So pretty rural area between these major highways in South Carolina, but still a lot of folks live in this area. And if you're in that spot or you know anybody that lives in these spots, call them or text them and say, hey, you're under a tornado warning. Yeah, it's up for 5 more minutes, but this is the warning right here. It's this circulation moving towards Tradesville and Pageland. Now, I'm probably not going to make it to Pageland, but we'll see if they extend this warning further east. We're getting updated sweeps of the radar, and every time we see a sweep, we still have a circulation there. So what's interesting about this storm, the warning was issued for a rotation there. The secondary rotation became much more of the problem, and actually it still looks pretty potent just looking at the radar right there. That's just going to be between New Cut and Highway 9, so it's going to pass right between there. So if you're in those areas, remember what we want you to do. Head to that interior room, lowest level of your house. Put as many walls between you and the outside. And again, I know if you're home alone right now and you're wondering what to do, if you're a kid, you got home from school, parents aren't home, it's okay. It's going to be fine. Just make sure you take your brother, your sister, your pets, head to that room, find that green room. That's the middle of the house. So it doesn't have to be a perfect room. It could be a hallway closet. It could be a pantry. It could be a half bath. It could be the clothes closet. Just think about as many walls between you and the outside. That's what we want you to do, is get into that interior room and protect yourself. Because the dangerous thing in tornadoes, I know it seems weird when I do school talks, I always tell the kids that it's not the wind, it's what the wind picks up and throws at you. So you want things that'll block that stuff. So think of these walls as force fields, right? Every wall is a force field. If the first one doesn't stop it, the second one will, the third one will. And if you're in that room and you have a bike helmet, football helmet, skateboard, hard hat, protect your head. Number one thing you want to do is protect your head. At school, when we do tornado drills, the kids get in the hallway and they put their hands over their head to protect your head. Don't use your arms. The helmet works much better than your arms, and that way your arms don't get hit. So protect your head. 80% of injuries in tornadoes are from head trauma. People get hit in the head with debris or falling debris. So protect that head. Grab some shoes if you can. Bring the phone in there. Continue to stream us. We'll let you know when it's safe to get out of there. But it doesn't hurt to go in there right now. Worst case scenario, you spend 15, 20 minutes in that room, and then you get to get out and make sure everything is safe. But again, we're watching this storm because it has had a history of producing rotation, and it has prompted our first tornado warning of the day, which is set to expire here in about 3 minutes. So Brittany, I have not seen anything that shows me damage reports, which is a good sign. No reports of funnel clouds, anything like that yet.
We did get an update from the National Weather Service about the secondary spot that you were talking about.
Yep.
They're not going to issue anything new since it kind of moved into the initial warning.
Yeah.
They did get a report from one spotter, and keep in mind this is one person in one spot.
Broad
that
rotation.
At least where they were, yeah, broad rotation.
Yeah. So that would make sense. Yeah.
I mean, that's the best case scenario here. So
yeah, that for them it's worked out really well because the rotation moved into the exact same warning polygon they already had. And so when you hear us talk about warning polygons, it's this shape. This is where the warning is. Warnings are not county based anymore. They're based on where the storm actually is. It's essentially the storm track. So only people in this area should get the warning. The reason that is, we don't want to warn for the whole county. Think of Mecklenburg County, Huntersville to Pineville. That's pretty far away. We don't want everyone getting the warning. You only warn for where the storm is and where it's happening. So right there is the circulation set to expire. Does not look like it'll be extended. Only one report of broad rotation within the base of the storm, which based on the radar, I would expect that because the storm probably had a rotating updraft, but was likely not producing a tornado because it just doesn't look like it was strong enough to get to the surface, and there was no indications of debris on the radar. The radar signature did not show a debris signature. So the good news is I think this is going to set to expire here in a minute, and we'll likely see that allowed to expire unless they see another tightening of that rotation, which I'm not seeing anything that would indicate that. I'm looking at a couple other products just to make sure the rotation is weakened a little bit. It's still there. It's not super strong, but there's still some broad rotation in there, right there. And you can see it. So the greens are winds going this way, the reds are going this way. Actually, a little bit of rotation there as well. That was the first rotation. That has thus weakened since we last talked. So coming up at the 4:15 time frame, this will either be expiring or being extended. And right now, I do not see it being extended yet.
yeah, I don't see any support, at least from what they're saying right now about it being broad rotation, that they would extend it for any reason.
Yeah, the Lancaster emergency manager
there it goes.
Says no damage in their county, so that's a good sign. So that the warning was allowed to expire, will not be extended, but we will keep a close eye on that storm just in case it prompts another warning. And don't be surprised if we at least get a severe thunderstorm warning for Chesterfield County, because this is the line we're watching pushing off to the south and east. This was the last little area that had not been worked over by storms. And what I mean by worked over, just the atmosphere energy got used up. There is a secondary line that's been trying to keep going. It's back here from Statesville down through Hickory into northern Cleveland County, but it's not showing much signs of getting stronger either. So the good news overall, Brittany, I think if we can get this first line out of here, the second line will be less of an issue. But until that line gets out of Chesterfield County, we still could get a warning to be issued.
Yeah, fingers crossed that won't happen. But as Brad, you've mentioned a few times, 6 p.m. That's kind of the time frame we're looking at. 6 p.m. till we're hoping all of this is over.
Yeah.
But I guess at some point we have to bring in sweet Nick and Jane.
Oh, yeah. It's been a long afternoon. We've been tracking these storms, and we really haven't had much until this storm popped up. But as Brittany and I were tracking, if you were watching us on WCNC Plus all afternoon long, this was the area we were watching. We had a couple cells that were rotating. We were talking with Nick about this in the Impact Studio, that those cells to the south were the ones that were the most concerning. And sure enough, that prompted our first warning of the day. But Nick and Jane, it has been a pretty busy afternoon. But the good news, kind of a rare severe weather day where everything could be in and out of here by the time we get to dinner time, and that's typically not the case. Things are usually just starting to ramp up now, and we're getting to the point where things are starting to go down.
Good to hear.
I was about to say, they've been on for over 3 hours on WCNC Plus and here on WCNC Charlotte TV. Yeah.
Solid coverage, keeping everyone safe. We'll let them reset as well.
All right, so thank you for joining us as we continue to track severe weather in our area. I'm Nick Sturdivant.
And I'm Jane Monreal. We do want to get to several breaking stories at this hour, including a death investigation now underway in West Charlotte. You're taking a look there at the scene on Golf Acres Drive. That's just off Wilkinson Boulevard. CMPD sharing a statement moments before we came on the air saying they were responding to a welfare check when they discovered a body underneath some water. They're urging anyone with information to call Crime Stoppers.
Within the last